are soon going to be over 1,025 Pokemon in total, and while everyone has their favorites, is your favorite actually a good pet? Many Pokemon have the power to destroy vast swaths of land with little to no effort, even being able to accidentally create mass explosions, or burning down my house in their sleep just by not controlling their powers. So in order to judge what Pokemon would be the best house pet, we try to answer the following. What are their behaviors like? Meaning, are they calm and friendly, or will they just suddenly decide to rip my arm off? And how difficult are they to care for? After all, every Pokemon has needs, whether that be attention, food, exercise, or even space. Can't have a wailord and a kiddie pool, after all. So with that in mind, I've scoured the entire Pokedex to find out what are the best Pokemon to have as house pets. Howdy there, I'm Krillic, and I will be including every single first form, or nearly every single first form Pokemon as a part of this. Though this does not mean that we will disclude every evolution. For example, Herdier is known to be good with children and a good house pet, and there are many Pokemon, primarily bug and grass type Pokemon, that can evolve without battling at all. After all, we are going to be assuming that we are not Pokemon trainers. So I apologize, but the incredibly aggressive and destructive Gyarados will not be considered for being a house pet. This is all because, theoretically speaking, any Pokemon can be tamed by the right trainer. We see Pokemon that are incredibly dangerous, such as Gliscor or Tyranitar, become big old babies in the right hands of incredibly skilled battlers. But we also see Pokemon such as Dreadnought, which are considered incredibly difficult to care for and are illegally released into the wild when a trainer can't take care of them anymore. We're also not going to be considering any mythicals or legendaries, but maybe I'll make a future video on that because it'd be really funny to just think about the god of all Pokemon as a house pet. In the end, remember that this is going to be a subjective list, a very long subjective list if you look at the runtime of this video. So if you think differently regarding any of the Pokemon that I include, or want to argue for any Pokemon that I did not include or talk about at all, share with me why you think they would be better or worse, because I read all the comments even if I don't react to all of them. I also got a number of responses through the community post, the community Discord, and on my live streams because this became a hot topic actually. So I will be considering many of those Pokemon as special cases if an argument was given for them, or even just the smallest bit of reasoning. By the end, I will decide which 6 Pokemon I would want to have as pets. Though finally, before we get started, I am automatically eliminating any Pokemon that is known to actively hunt down humans, or are so dangerous that we can't even touch them or be near them without dying. This means Pokemon such as the Litwick line, which will consume and burn our souls, Lampent specifically, going to people who are dying and devouring their souls as they draw their last breath, or Pokemon such as the Cantonian Muck, where if we just simply touch it, we will contract a fatal illness that cannot be cured. Those are not house pets. So with all of that out of the way, we'll discuss Pokemon as they appear throughout the regions for the sake of organization throughout the decks, and let's get started with the first Pokemon appearing in Kanto. The Bulbasaur line. The first partner Pokemon are raised by breeders to be distributed to new trainers. Having been raised by humans from birth, Bulbasaur is regarded as both a rare and well-behaved Pokemon. It is known to be extremely loyal, even after long-term abandonment. Bulbasaur have demonstrated a nurturing instinct towards younger, weaker Pokemon, one individual even using its vines to pick up a crying Pokemon, gently rocking it back and forth through the air while singing a Bulbabai. Its vines are long and strong enough to allow Bulbasaur to grab the tree's branches and pull itself up to reach berries. Bulbasaur can survive days without eating. Right off the bat, the very first Pokemon, he was number 1 and he stays number 1. He gets a massive pass. Loyal, friendly, incredibly caring. This puts Bulbasaur as a top tier pet, even for those that are inexperienced. And if you are a veteran Pokemon pet owner, then it's even better for you, especially if you have children. What's interesting about this line of Pokemon is that they will absolutely evolve without having to fight. They just need enough sunlight. The weight of the plants on its back prevents Ivysaur from running fast and standing on its hind legs, forcing its legs to grow sturdy. When its flower is ready to bloom, it gives off a distinct sweet-smelling aroma and starts swelling. Ivysaur will also start spending more time in sunlight in preparation for its upcoming evolution. Exposure to sunlight adds to the strength of both Ivysaur and its plant. So, the temperament and attention necessary hasn't really changed. These are really self-sufficient Pokemon, great for people who are really busy in their own lives but would like to have someone to care for, a companion if you would. Though you'd want to make sure that you're giving it enough land, especially as it becomes Venusaur, assuming that it would want to evolve, because not every Pokemon wants to evolve. With Venusaur, it'd honestly be most fitting for a greenhouse, especially as its scents can draw other Pokemon towards it, which can cause a lot of problems if you're not prepared for it. For the next Pokemon, let's make an assumption. If a Pokemon has a flame, we will assume that it is safe for the most part unless it states otherwise. Its temperament will be the main deciding factor of whether it is dangerous, just as it is with any other Pokemon that we are discussing today. After all, nearly every Pokemon does have at least one incredibly powerful move or dangerous move in general, whether it be fire-based or not. So no matter what, there will always be a risk, and some Pokemon will get upset just as real-life animals do. They all have personalities. It is up to you to make responsible decisions as a pet owner or pet partner, whichever moniker you prefer. With Charmander, we do have the issue of the open flame, which might cause some problems here and there, especially as we can't put it out or it will die. Despite this though, the flame can indicate Charmander's health and mood, burning brightly when the Pokemon is strong, weakly when exhausted, wavering when happy, and blazing when enraged. So, we can at least tell the emotions and health of our partner Pokemon rather easily, and that gains some points in my book, as I wish I could look at some of my animals and be like, how are you feeling today? You can't tell me. I just have to stare at your eyes until I get some sort of indicator of it. If anything, just make sure that some of these Pokemon have a special room, so that way they're not burning everything up in their sleep, kind of like having a bird room. Its evolutions, Charmeleon and Charizard, are definitely not Pokemon we would want as pets, as they can be far more vicious in nature and tend to actively like setting things on fire, so not a great house pet. Squirtle is just a super powered turtle and tends to be happier, and hey, if you can manage to get it some sunglasses, then fantastic, you're one step closer to having the Squirtle squad, as everybody should be happy for. Just make sure that when it comes to its care, Squirtle is getting some of the fish that it needs, so it may be a better pet on the coast, or a bit more of an exotic pet, as honestly many of these Pokemon are. Starter Pokemon, who would have guessed? Also, we'll talk about a little bit more for food later when it comes to our carnivores. When it comes to bugs, it's almost always going to be divisive in the end. The Caterpillar line grows quickly, and it's just a caterpillar evolving as a normal caterpillar will metamorph into a butterfly for that matter. Butterfree itself even eats honey and pollen. And then the problem with Caterpie, despite the calm temperament, is actually that it might just drool a bunch of the sticky string, which might be hard to clean up. Now, when it does become Butterfree, the problem is actually because of its scales. The wings of a Butterfree are coated with poisonous scales that easily fall off continuously as it flies. If inhaled, it results in several status conditions. So yeah, just imagine them flying around the house and they end up causing you to be paralyzed, or poisoned, or both at the same time, at random, because you decided to be near it when it decided to fly. And you can't stop them from evolving either. They literally just evolve by existing as normal caterpillars, eating their fill of food. So, yeah, butterfly is probably not the greatest to have as a pet, and they would need their own enclosure if you want to keep them that way. And again, a lot of these Pokemon are going to need big enclosures. A classic bird Pokemon that actually might be great for people who keep pigeons in real life is actually Pidgey, even though it's not really a pigeon. Pidgey has extremely sharp senses of direction and homing instincts. It can travel straight back to its nest regardless of how far away it may have flown. It is a docile Pokemon and prefers to flee from its enemies rather than fight them. Flapping its wings rapidly can whip up dust clouds and create whirlwinds to protect itself and flush out potential prey. So, it would require decent amounts of attention and space, otherwise seems to be more conflict avoidance than anything. It would require pretty basic food all in all. Unfortunately, their evolutions aren't going to make much sense to have as a pet due to their size and how much space they're going to need to be properly taken care of, while also being Pokemon that do not naturally occur, since it would need to fight in order to evolve. Rattata are not really any different from regular rats, except they're super powered. Who would have guessed? So if you think you can handle a super powered rat, then go for it. Rats themselves do make really good pets, they just tend to have shorter lifespans due to sudden medical conditions more than anything. You know, related to a certain astronomical crab, if you would. Its evolution can be rather vicious though, so we're not going to consider Raticate. And I'm not going to keep saying every single Pokemon we're not going to consider. I'm just getting you used to the idea of, okay, we're skipping around a little bit. Spearow are one of the red-winged blackbirds of Pokemon. They're going to be aggressive. They're shown to be aggressive in the anime, the games, everywhere really. They are ultimately not meant to be house pets in the slightest, despite being more birds. Now, the problem with Ekans isn't that it is aggressive. In fact, the issue lies potentially in its diet. The fact that it does have to eat other Pokemon or their eggs creates a little bit of a problem. I don't want to think about Pokemon pet stores just providing this type of stuff, although we can't circumvent all of this by simply stating that the dietary preferences of our Pokemon are properly taken care of by the specifically created food by the Pokemon breeders, such as Brock. This allows Pokemon to achieve all their dietary needs without sacrificing their well-being, as they might want to hunt or have the proper food set for them. So that way we don't have to hand a full-on Pichu to an Ekans or an Arbok in order to keep them as a pet. Though, the only thing we have to worry about is the fact that Arbok is territorial. Ekans is pretty much just your average snake pet, except it's over 6 feet long, 2 meters, if you would. So, you're gonna need plenty of room for that, and it kind of reminds me of the banana boa that opens the door on its own. Outside of Ash's Pikachu being a bit of a jerk because, you know, of just its own personality and its own path, it actually would be a solid house pet. Just don't allow them near the house if it's raining outside, otherwise your house might get struck by lightning. In terms of their temperament, they tend to be friendlier with their own kind and other Pokemon or people for the most part. They are considered a more intelligent species in terms of Pokemon, so don't belittle them and you won't get that attitude back at you. Pikachu do communicate amongst themselves using squeaks and tail shaking as friendly gestures. In a plethora of Pikachu, it is shown that Alola and Pikachu are known to greet each other by sniffing one another and rubbing their tails together. Electricity can be used to receive and send messages with each other, as well as with other electric-type Pokemon. It raises its tail to check its surroundings, and is occasionally struck by lightning in this position. When groups grow, they can inadvertently cause lightning storms, so do not have a group of Pikachu. That might be a bad idea. They also primarily like to stick to their diet of berries in which they roast with their electricity, so all in all, a fairly expressive Pokemon with an easy diet, but might still require more attention since they are fairly sociable. You probably wouldn't want Pichu since they can't really control their electricity all in all. Raichu can get aggressive if they don't let out their electricity regularly, and then Alolan Raichu is kind of a special case. In fact, it's much friendlier, enjoys pancakes, and is intelligent enough to learn how to serve those pancakes to people and even enjoys surfing waves. So if you do live in areas where that is possible and you would like a partner to do so with, Alolan Raichu will get your back. So unless you want a house full of holes, or live in the desert, Pokemon like Sandshrew really aren't great pets. Sandshrew spends most of its time hidden underground in deep burrows. It only emerges to lunge and drag in passing bug-type Pokemon. So, ruined floors and a Pokemon that won't spend much time with you. Not a great trade-off. Nidoran male and female are just poisonous rabbits in the end. The hard part is actually that the poison they have is extremely potent, and Nidoran male will do everything they can to protect the female. So the last thing that I personally need is to have an off day, as all pets and people are apt to have, and I get stung by my own pet and die. Because while it is easy to heal the poisons in the Pokemon game, that does not mean that it's easy to deal with those poisons in real life. It's not to say that the Pokédex isn't correct, and that these poisons will not kill you in about 17 seconds. Ultimately, you don't want to get poisoned in the Pokemon world, so any of our poison-type Pokemon can be a little bit scary, but it's the risk you run with certain animals anyway. Though I will at least note, Nidorina will tuck away their quills as to not hurt each other and their children, and they've also started to gain this maternal instinct as they care for their young. So there's a chance that you could have them as a pet. Nidorino, though, absolutely not. And Nidoking, a 0% chance. The last thing you need is to have a Nidoking and a Nidoqueen. And with Nidoking being very aggressive and they fight for their mates all the time, for them to think that you're trying to mac on their girl, and then they slam you with their bone-crushing tail. Clefairy would be a solid pet all in all for anybody who's really a night owl. They don't really eat anything, they dance under the moonlight, and then they drink water in the morning to energize themselves. Otherwise, they don't really do anything whatsoever that are considered risky or dangerous unless you bother them and then they hit you with a metronome. and they're super friendly, happy, and cute. Although Clefable would probably be a little bit tougher, considering it is a timid creature that flees when it senses people approaching, and is one of the world's rarest Pokemon. Its sensitive ears can distinctly hear a pin drop half a mile to 1,100 yards away. Because of its acute hearing, it prefers to live in quiet, mountainous areas of which it is protected. So, it likely wouldn't like living with me, or anyone else for that matter, because it would just be too loud. It would overstimulate them, it would hurt them, and it'd just be a problem. So, you can't really force them to evolve, but at the same time, they're gonna want to evolve. That's what they seek out. They seek out and worship the Moonstones after all. And Cleffa kind of instinctively lean towards wanting that too. So, this whole line is probably going to be a Pokemon that you're not going to be able to keep for very long, but you can probably adopt. Vulpix makes it a little bit difficult, as you can have red foxes as pets now, properly domesticated, but it's a matter of whether or not they actually control their flames properly once more. Also, foxes in real life tend to pee very often, everywhere, and it smells absolutely horrid. That's not to say that that's going to have the same issue with Vulpix, Ninetales, or their Alolan forms for that matter. At least the Alolan forms are going to be a little bit calmer, but you also need really nice, cold environments for them to be happier. And if they're anywhere near as adverse to touch as Ninetales is said to be, then you definitely wouldn't want one as a normal house pet. Outside of that though, foxes are said to have a personality that is a mix between a cat and the dog. They just need 3 to 4 hours of exercise a day. So if you're an active individual and willing to make the foxes a big focus of your life, go forward with the Vulpix line. Igglybuff and its line aren't actually that bad. You can watch and make sure Igglybuff doesn't hurt itself though by singing for too long, as otherwise its throat would get sore. Jigglypuff might run out of breath when singing if it gets into a competition with other Jigglypuff, and overall, if any of the individuals get upset, they might expand. More specifically, Wigglytuff is said to expand indefinitely, meaning if you make it upset and it throws a fit, you could have everything in your house slowly destroyed, or it could just block you out of an entire room. Imagine just waking up, walking over, you're still groggy, and you just slam into something, and you realize your Wigglytuff is upset with you. You're now trapped in your room for the rest of the day. Honestly, it's pretty tame compared to other Pokemon. Wigglytuff is also said to apparently have incredibly soft fur, to the point where some people have a hard time not petting them anymore. Overall, simple, friendly, comfy Pokemon to sit or cuddle with, and they might even be good for people with insomnia, as they can even sing you to sleep. Though, again, just make sure that if Igglybuff starts bouncing, you help it, because otherwise it will never stop. Oddish is a little bit of a hard one as well, as most plant-related Pokemon might be. Because while Oddish isn't bad, in fact, it might actually be great for night owls once again, its evolutions can cause problems, or at least gloom might with its stench. In nocturnal Pokemon, Oddish buries its sensitive body in the ground during the day to avoid the sun and fool predators. If its leaves are pulled in its state, it will respond by shrieking horribly. It's kind of like a mandrake. It starts to move when its leaves begin absorbing moonlight, which it uses to grow. Oddish will wander up to 1,000 feet, 300 meters roughly, during the night to scatter its seeds and find a nutrient-rich patch of soil in which to plant itself. The more fertile the earth, the glossier its leaves will be. The thing with Oddish, though, is that it is more nomadic, partially because of predators. Some rodents might actually be more active at night, or at least at dusk, depending on the rodents or general predators themselves. And glossy leaves definitely make it harder to be able to hide properly. So, you have to be on the run. The solution is just to provide them with a space where they can hide from the sunlight, bask in the moonlight, and overall just feel safe and they'll be happy. If you're lucky though, when it evolves from enough absorption and nutrients and everything, that you might be one of the few who actually like the smell of gloom and can handle it. Not to say your neighbors will though. And if we were to evolve it into Vileplume, it and Gloom are feeding on insects while also being large Pokemon. I'm gonna keep saying what their diets are, because you can give them those diets or their typical diets as a treat. You give it as a primary food if you wanted to go natural with it, I suppose. I don't know what your preferences are. Either way, it'll be good for them instead of just having the Pokemon food, even if that is said to be really, really good and nutritious and meet their needs. Sometimes you do need additional nutrients for your pets. Think of it like, I don't know, extra treats for your dogs, or calcium scrapes for your birds, whatever, millets. I don't know. I haven't cared for birds in a long time, so if I get that wrong, please correct me. Blossom, though, is often seen dancing and chanting. In particular, it dances when cloudy weather persists or when the heavy rainfall season ends, and it is drawn out by the warm sunlight. So, for these Pokemon, you'll want some big windows, maybe a small backyard, and if you can get past gloom quickly, then it should be set with a pretty nice friend. So I had to change the lighting because otherwise I felt like I was just a big old purple grape, no different than Thanos. But if the lighting feels weird or different than what you're used to, let me know in the comments and I'll kind of shift it back over. You guys hit membership goals on the channel, and when those types of things happen, because your memberships help keep the channel afloat and alive, because ad revenue is not as good as you might think it is, especially for a channel this small, I try to give back. And this time, I got a green screen, which I'm not using at this exact moment for this video. It's going to be used on streams and whenever a fun opportunity happens, or for whenever I can do a skip. But I have a green screen now, which is great. Which actually brings me a perfect opportunity to talk about the fact that if you are enjoying this so far, thank you so much for watching. Please make sure you do subscribe if you aren't subscribed yet. Share this video with others. Go check out my other long-form content. I have literal hours, if not days, of content just like this available for you to watch. And if you would like to, and it would help the channel a lot, go as far as become a member for as little as $3 a month. Again, it helps the channel a ton, and there's always fun ways that I try to bring it back to the channel. This month, because of last month's goals, I got the green screen. I'm actually doing a Pokemon cooking video with actually the book is right next to me, a Pokemon official cookbook. Delicious recipes inspired by Pikachu and friends. Nevertheless, as always, thank you so much for watching, and let's continue on with the video. Meowth in general, depending on the region, gives us a bit of an array of personalities, just as any real cat would, so let's just talk about them all here. Meowth is attracted to round and shiny objects and has the unique ability to produce coins using its signature move, Payday, which is really funny because when I first brought this whole idea up, some people said, oh, get a Meowth, have it use Payday. Is that illegal? Who cares? I'm gonna go run off with my infinite money now. And it's like, oh my gosh. Gremlins, all of you. Meowth in its evolved forms are the only known Pokemon capable of learning the move Payday by leveling up. Being nocturnal, it is known to wander about city streets at night and pick up anything that sparkles, including loose change. Upon finding a sparkling object, its eyes will glitter, and the coin on its forehead will shine brightly. Meowth is a playful but fickle Pokemon with the capacity for human-like intelligence. Meowth is known to sleep with the coins it collects. Now, when we talk about Alolan Meowth, it was first introduced to Alola as a gift to royalty. The luxurious royal lifestyle soon led to Meowth diverging from its origins and becoming a selfish, prideful, and cunning Alolan Meowth. As a result, Alolan Meowth's new pride also made them impulsive and fickle in nature. Alolan Meowth will turn hysterical if its coin or pride are besmirched. It is known to be very famously difficult to train due to their arrogant nature, but despite this, it is also very popular with some trainers who enjoy giving it a lot of attention. Galarian Meowth's body has partially turned to iron as a result of many years of living with a race of savage seafarers. So, those are all fairly easy Pokemon to explain in terms of their companionship, how they like to be treated, and just watch out with leaving coins around because Meowth might start collecting all their coins around the house and hiding them into their own personal stash. It's just a normal cat with powers and a bit of extra greed. Some inbreeding if you look at, the Alolan form after all. Sonic is constantly stunned by its headache and is unable to think very clearly. It usually stands immobile, trying to calm its headache. However, when its headache becomes too severe, it releases tension in the form of strong psychic powers. The use of these powers produces brainwaves identical to those seen in sleepers, and the Pokemon is unable to recall these episodes. So of course, if they have headaches, everything around them might start exploding, so you could always try to buy something to ease these migraines. We've seen Cynthia produce a medicine for Psyduck, but it might ultimately, if you can't afford that, might not be the greatest pet for indoors, even if they are well taken care of, as things will just go boom. One that many people are going to love and want as a house pet is going to be Growlithe and Arcanine, despite the size of Arcanine. Growlithe is a friendly and loyal Pokemon that will fearlessly defend its trainer and territory from harm, even against larger, stronger enemies. In particular, it has been known to fight with Rockruff over territory. It will fiercely bark at, bite, and chase away any perceived threat. Otherwise, the obedient Pokemon will wait motionlessly until given an order. It has a long history with people, as its bones have been found in Stone Age ruins. Growlithe also has a powerful olfactory sense, Smeller. If it detects an unknown smell in its territory, it roars to flush out the intruder. It can smell the emotions of others, never forgets a scent. However, though, strong, unpleasant smells can disable Growlithe's sense of smell for short periods. As mentioned in Pokemon Sleep, Growlithe is known to bark at anyone who approaches it while sleeping. Now, even if you do manage to get your hands on the Hisuian form, it is just a bit more difficult to bond with as the only downside. It has soft and insulated fur, making it perfect for colder environments, though you definitely want to have two, as they are used to living in pairs if you get that form. So treat it like a ferret in that case, otherwise it just needs a lot of attention. When we look at Arcanine, it is a fiercely brave and loyal Pokemon. It'll also be a great guard dog and perfect for sharing treats with or hiding treats in for the future, because that's where it likes to store them. Arcanine has long been admired for its beauty and speed, and anyone who hears its bark will grovel before it. The source of its power is a flame blazing wildly inside of its body. In the Pokemon This Series episode on Cloud Arcanine, it was shown that it stashes food in its mane and carries it to its nest for its young. As shown in Pokemon Sleep, they're known to sleep at supremely comfortable sleeping spots, and when it sleeps, it is said to be similar to how an innocent child sleeps. In other words, it is not afraid of anybody trying to attack it, because it knows when anybody approaches, and it will bark at them even while sleeping. Poliwag can't really be a house pet since they primarily live underwater and are massive tadpoles. They do need to eat a lot of moss and will eventually start walking on land, in which case they'll need some level of assistance in doing so, and I suppose it'd be no different than having a fish tank, but the size of a Pokemon. Fish tanks, though, might be a little bit more expensive than expected, so either prepare for that or buy a pool, I guess. Abra is just going to disappear on you. Moving on. The Machop line as a whole is perfect for anyone who wants to stay physically active or is physically active. They tend to be a common Pokemon that people in many professions have and are incredibly safe and helpful overall while being strong. The only downside is that they will need to train a lot, and it is going to keep doing so, though this is something that we're going to find in a lot of other fighting type Pokemon as well. So if working out is your hobby, then I can cover the general idea of most fighting type Pokemon by saying if you have them as a house pet, you should be an active person in your lifestyle, or they will need a job. Of course, we'll still talk about some of the other fighting types, but that blanket statement kind of covers all of them. That way I don't have to be repetitive saying the same thing and be like, oh, this fighting type needs attention or needs to be active over and over and over again. Geodude be out here eating rocks. It is a docile Pokemon, even allowing itself to be used as weights for working out by other Pokemon such as Machop. It's just a rock that does at least have a calmer demeanor the longer it lives and becomes a little bit more smoothed out due to its past experiences and rolling or being attacked or whatever it is you might say. Just don't step on it or it will get angry, and I do suppose people keep pet rocks after all, now that I think about it. Just don't have a Alolan Geodude though, because that has a lot of magnetism in its body, and that is going to destroy your electronics. Same thing goes for Magnemite for that matter. Any Pokemon that's magnetic is going to mess up your electronics. Slowpoke is great if you want to veg out for all eternity. The real problem with it is that it's so calm and oblivious as a Pokemon that you have to inspect them very often because of the fact that it will not feel any pain. You could chop off its tail and it won't feel it for hours, if not an entire day later. Meaning that it could get gravely injured and you wouldn't know it, and it could be too late to treat them properly. So it'll be a Pokemon that needs regular checkups from you at home. Ducks as pets aren't too uncommon these days, and Farfetch'd and its Galarian form wouldn't make bad pets. Just make sure that it always has its stick or leak, and that's because it is unable to live without it, and it will defend it with its life, potentially even eating it a little bit. Losing the stock can leave Farfetch'd defenseless, and it will seek out a new one to replace it if ever lost. As such, it needs a nice and safe environment where it can feel comfortable. It might also be a great Pokemon pet to assist outside if you are having trouble with other Pokemon that are destroying your garden. Just plant reeds nearby if possible, as it will guard those. A Surfetch is kind of out of the question though, because it needs to survive many battles, and that would be very unlikely to happen because We're not battling trainers. Doduo's a 4'7" bird. We're not going to have any emo ranches. Emu ranches anytime soon. I mean, they do kind of look emo, to be fair. Shelter would actually be a decent aquarium pet if you have the immense space for it. This is because it does like to swim throughout the seafloor that it calls home, and is likely using it as a form of filtering to eat food whenever it is waiting for its next meal to bite its tongue, which it uses as a lure. Maybe just give it a backyard pond, you're good to go, and they will likely not bite you unless you grab their tongue, making them another docile Pokemon while also not needing a lot of attention. If you really want Drowsy as a pet, I guess you can have one. Drowsy is able to put people to sleep and can sense the person's dreams. This is so it knows what kind of dream it would be eating. It has preferences for dreams that it eats, known to love fun dreams and become ill from bad dreams. It will rarely eat the dreams of adults, as the dreams of children are seemingly tastier. That's because adults have depression and they have to deal with bills and crushing reality. Yay. Either way, Drowsy also remembers every dream that it has eaten and may show past meals to a person it trusts. It eats dreams through the victim's nose, so it's said that Drowsy is standing over a person's pillow if their nose itches while they're asleep. I don't like that. Look, it's not necessarily a bad Pokemon. It's just, I don't like the idea of it stooping over me every single night when I'm asleep. It's a terrifying concept that I have nothing to do with. The last thing I need is to wake up, open my eyes, and it's right there in my face as my nose is itching because it's doing whatever it needs to do. Krabby needs very little social activity since they typically keep to themselves anyway. In terms of food, they're not super picky and eat whatever's given to them, but they will start to eat sand if they run out. Of course, this doesn't mean that you should just ignore their dietary needs because they are eating sand to eat microorganisms and macroinvertebrates that might exist within the sand itself. What's also nice is that Krabby will actually tell us it is upset by covering its body in bubbles. Now, Execute is an interesting Pokemon to think of as a house pet. They're communal, they're able to defend themselves from stronger predators such as Pidgeotto and Crab Brawler, which are its natural predators, and are welcoming towards other Pokemon of similar sizes. They're cowardly if they ever reduce to less than 6, so technically you'll always have 6 pets until it evolves, and then you'll definitely want to move it outside. Although you'll need to live in more tropical or warmer regions in general to meet their needs. The next problem though is that its evolutions are not solitary Pokemon, often enjoying the company of other Executor for that matter. The other issue is that if one of the heads fall off, they will form more Execute, which will eventually become more Executor, and the whole process is very confusing as to how they actually reproduce, as it seems like some weird mix of reproductive types and then non-reproduction. Like, how does this really work? Because do they send out their spores? Do they send out any sort of pollen? And then they don't have fruiting bodies on them, so I don't understand how they have children. Either way, you might just end up with an entire backyard of these things at that rate, and they will likely wander off eventually, needing more space than you can actually provide. Do I really need to explain why Cubone is going to be an amazing pet? Yeah, sure, it's going to be needy. It lost its mother. What do you expect? It will have its separation anxiety, so just be prepared for that. And it will cry often while being loud and disruptive in doing so, but it is said that when it does stop crying, it will evolve into Marowak. Not even happening by level up or combat or anything like that. And both forms of Marowak are arguable good house pets, actually, though there is a downside still with their temperament. Now ferocious and violent, Marowak is an adept combatant that uses the bone it carries as a weapon and boomerang. Having evolved, it seeks vengeance on its natural enemy, Mandibuzz, which prey on Cubone because of its naturally weak and timid demeanor. Marowak has also been recorded pounding on boulders with the bone club it carries to tap out messages to others. It lives in mountains to test its skills, and is known to sleep while using its bones similar to a pillow, possibly being at peace when doing so. On occasion, it will affectionately hold that bone while sleeping instead. So yeah, it's out for revenge because it's big Angie. Alolan Marowak is a little bit better at least. It is communal, often making friends with other Pokemon, especially weak ones that do need help, all to the point of mourning them after their deaths, burying them, and then dancing in their honor. I won't lie, having an entire group of Alolan Marowak mourning for me in dance after I pass sounds pretty freaking baller. So it'll be a little bit of a friendlier Pokemon while still being very, very protective despite its hardship. The Happiny line is like having an at-home nurse and nutritionist all in one. Happiny's pouch is rubbery and flexible, enabling it to put things into it with ease. As it cannot produce eggs yet, it makes up for it by carrying something round and white in its pouch to imitate Chansey and Blissey, typically an egg-shaped stone. Happiny highly treasures this stone. It may give it to people whom it likes, however, and it may throw a tantrum and cry should the stone be taken from it or not returned to it. The object it decides to carry may be too large, stopping it from being able to move. Imagine it getting a little too greedy and just putting like an ostrich egg in there, and now it just flops over to the side, starts rolling around everywhere. It has a bit of a habit of wandering around people's feet and causing them to stumble. Sounds like my small dog. So if you have small dogs, or even if you have cats, it's no different from that. Happiny enjoys playing with children, often playing a game of house with them. Happiny is shown to be extremely strong in the animated series, and as seen in the animated series, it has been shown lifting heavy things above its head. So, not hard, again, not much different than a small dog or cat for that matter, or any cat for that matter. Just make sure it doesn't lose its fake egg. Now, when we move on to Chansey, it is a kind-hearted Pokemon that will share its eggs with injured people and Pokemon. However, Chansey will never share its egg to those with evil hearts. The eggs become more delicious if it is raised with love and care. Chansey's egg is used as a high-class cooking ingredient due to the nutrition it has, and as a result, Chansey have been referred to as doctor's doubles because of its eggs. Finally, we have Blissey. Its egg can cause a person to start acting kindly to others and calm down even the most ferocious of Pokemon. Eating its egg is said to bring good fortune to those that consume it. Its egg can fetch the highest price at markets, and it can use its fluffy fur to sense sadness and will rush to anyone feeling sad or ill and attempt to nurse them back to health. It is said to be overflowing with love. So, this whole line, they're strong, they're fast, they're friendly, they're kind, great with kids and other Pokemon, can calm others down, their eggs are highly nutritious and valuable, they can tell if a person is bad similar to how other animals in real life do, they're great at comforting people emotionally, physically, will heal you if you're sick, they're clearly intelligent in many ways. What more could you actually possibly ask for? I guess the only thing we don't know is how active they are as a Pokemon, so how much attention do they really need? We could imagine that they'd even make amazing service pets, and similar to dogs such as German Shepherds, will need a job to feel fulfilled with their life and stay happy, which is probably why we see them at Poke Centers all the time. They like to give. They're a Pokemon that likes to see others happy. So, if you can provide it with a job, this line is phenomenal. Tangela makes things a little weird and interesting once more, as with any other plant Pokemon. There is a mission in Pokemon Legends Arceus to at least give a Tangela to a non-trainer NPC, and while initially it may seem like a bit of a dangerous Pokemon based on initial actions, it really isn't. Tangela can ensnare and entangle anything that moves too close with its vines. The vines constantly jiggle and sway, unnerving enemies and causing a tickling sensation if ensnared. Tangela's vines will snap off easily and painlessly if the target pulls on them, so it can quickly escape. The vines of Tangela are said to have a refreshing flavor and scent, and in Galar, its vines are used as herbs. They're found in temperate grasslands and have been known to swing on tree branches using its vines. Great Pokemon in warm places, easy to escape from if it does accidentally grab you or anything else, and it is pretty cute to think of it as like swinging off of the vines. I'm pretty sure there's a trading card game card that has that. And the only downside is that it will need some level of care to ensure that those vines don't grow too long. Otherwise, simple Pokemon. If you enjoy Fancy Tail Fish, Goldeen wouldn't be terrible were it not for the fact that with its horn and aggressive nature and stronger power than a Fancy Tail, it's just gonna smash through your aquarium. Honestly, a lot of water Pokemon are gonna be very repetitive. You probably don't have the space for them unless you have ridiculous amounts of money, but I will still mention a few of them here and there. Mime Jr. and Mr. Mime are really awkward to consider house pets, but they are genuinely amazing if we could look past the idea of Mr. Mime being so humanoid. Plus, Mime Jr. is adorable and likes to mimic those that it loves and looks up to. It has a knack for imitating others, though it's not very good at it. It can easily pick up the emotions of those around it and imitate them, known to mimic its foes in order to create distractions, and once the foe is confused, it will quickly escape. They, in Galar, tend to idolize and imitate its final evolved form, Mr. Rhyme, which are widely popular in the region for their talent in tap dancing. By practicing their dance steps, they eventually evolve into Galarian Mr. Mime. It likes places where there are many people that gather together, and often been seen visiting marketplaces filled with people. As mentioned in the Sleep Solid Dex, Mime Jr. can be found sleeping on pantomimed beds on rare occasions. It's a little bit weird, makes me wonder if, like, we need to actually get it a bed or not. Is the pantomimed bed comfy? You could assume so, because it made it itself. Would you just eventually get used to it, seeing it floating while it's asleep? Would it just randomly fall asleep in the middle of the hallway and you have to kind of like skirt around it? Would it float above your bed? There's a lot of quality questions that I have that we're just not going to have answers to. Even when sleeping, Mime Jr. is said to be putting a lot of heart and effort into mimicking its evolution, Mr. Mime. From birth, Mr. Mime is an excellent pantomime. As it matures, it gains the ability to solidify air molecules by vibrating its fingertips. This ability allows it to create invisible objects with its gestures. It punishes those who interrupt its act or are not impressed by slapping them. We also do see Mr. Mime in the anime, eating and preparing food, greeting guests, watching TV, eating potato chips, whatever, you name it. This Pokemon is honestly just loving to straddle that line of human and Pokemon to such an awkward degree that it makes me question why it still eats on the floor in some shots, because it doesn't actually eat at the dinner table. It had Delia and Ash at the table and wasn't eating. It wasn't eating meats. It wasn't eating with them. No, it would still eat separately. So it's so awkward. But again, if we could look past that, sure, great house pet that's kind of like a butler in a weird way. I don't know. It's weird to say. I'm ready to move on. Magikarp is another difficult one because on one hand, we have a very docile Pokemon that really won't do anything and will simply just exist within aquariums. On the other hand, we can only hope that since it isn't fighting and it isn't being treated wrong, it will never evolve. Or you will have a lot of explaining to do to the insurance companies. They are really hardy, and that's not to say that you shouldn't treat them with care, that you could just let their aquariums fall apart. It just, you know, they just require a little bit less maintenance all in all. If you want one pet that fits all pets, then get yourself a Ditto, assuming that it has seen other animals already. I guess take it to a zoo and you're good to go. They're friendly Pokemon as long as they don't come into contact with another Ditto, but even then, their aggressiveness just comes out in, oh, I can transform faster than you can. Each Ditto has its own strengths and weaknesses when it comes to transforming, being unable to remain transformed while laughing, and getting details of its transformation wrong if based on memory, both of those being apparently universal between Dittos. It is shown to be able to transform into humans as well, which is incredibly creepy, especially if you get up with a little bit more of a mischievous Ditto, or look at the Dittos that appear in the Pokemon Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, where they replaced officers. However, it cannot mimic human speech, and it transforms into a rock when it goes to sleep, so that way it can avoid any attacks. And I would like to theorize that you would never actually have to buy them any food at all. As long as you show them a grass-type Pokemon that can photosynthesize, they're just gonna go outside, photosynthesize, come back in, and they'll be happy. Buy them some treats, of course, like we discussed with any other Pokemon here. Otherwise, it might just be a great Pokemon to keep with you at all times. It could transform into something small, something easy, something lightweight, or it could just hide its goopy body in your backpack. Pretty great. Here's another obvious big contender, Eevee and its evolutions. While many Pokemon and trainers tend to look like each other over time, similar to how real pets and human partners might, Eevee has a proclivity to do the same, but to the next degree, changing to adopt its trainer's face over time, which is a little bit creepy depending on how far that actually goes when we take into the account that its genetic makeup is not complete, so that might go a little bit further than we might expect. Otherwise, we have always seen Eevee as a super friendly, cuddly Pokemon that will be very vocal. It is a Pokemon that we can also suspect needs a lot of attention and companionship. Its evolutions are interesting to consider as well, as they will evolve based on their environments, the bond between you, or even just the stones provided without having actual combat. So let's talk about all the evolutions. Jolteon takes more care since it does have a high strong nature and tendency towards mood strings, making it difficult to train, which is scary considering it does harness electricity. Jolteon creates electricity using an organ in its lungs, which causes crackling noises as it exhales. That doesn't sound great to me. That sounds like a number of different respiratory diseases, and that would freak me out personally. It can also generate low-level electricity in its cells, which is amplified by the negative ions it gathers and generates in its fur, allowing it to discharge 10,000 volt lightning bolts. And yes, that could greatly harm if not kill you. Jolteon's prickly fur is made of electricity-charged needles, which create a sparking noise as it moves. So, makes mood swings with electric powers, and you're just gonna have a bad time. You're gonna need to be treating Jolteon with a lot of special care to make sure you don't get fried. Vaporeon likes to eat fish, seems to be fairly calm, and he can even tell when it's about to rain. Thank goodness it is a calm Pokemon though, because it is said to be able to freely control water in its entirety. I don't know what the extent of that is, but just as a reminder, we are mostly composed of water, and I don't want this thing throwing a fit and dehydrating me, just making me look like a apple that's been left in the sun for too long. The problem with Vaporeon though is it does prefer to be around beaches and lake shores, meaning you're going to want to have some level of access to these places and bring it there regularly for its overall mental health. Flareon's average body temperature is around 1300 to 1500 degrees Fahrenheit, 700 to 800 degrees Celsius, but it can reach up to 1700 Fahrenheit, 900 Celsius. It is an omnivore that roasts either berries or prey before consumption. Flareon has a curious personality and is mostly found in populated areas, rarely seen in the wilderness. As mentioned in Pokemon Sleep, it is believed that Flareon is regulating its body temperature while sleeping. Due to its fur releasing heat to help it cool down, Flareon is able to sleep comfortably. Now, despite the high body temperature, it can regulate itself. So, I would like to assume that Flareon would actually be a great Pokemon for comfort. A Pokemon that could assist with trauma patients, or even be great when you live in, say, a cold environment, since it'll be able to survive them without an issue, and might actually be happier since it could regulate its own temperature easier. I don't mean to make a lot of assumptions, or comparisons constantly to German Shepherds, but like, I have a German Shepherd mix that we rescued named Jaeger. He is just such a goofball. I love him so much, and he loves the cold. I worry sometimes because he just wants to keep going outside, and I don't want the neighbors to think that like we're not treating him right when he doesn't want to come inside after being out there in 30-degree or below weather for 15-20 minutes. And it's like, I tried to get him in, and when you could touch his fur, and he is warm. He is so warm to the touch still. It's insane. So that's kind of what I imagine would happen with a Flareon. Umbreon hunts at night, and as such has well-developed eyes that can spot a prey even in darkness. Its black fur helps it blend into the night while waiting for the right moment to pounce. When it does, its rings emit a dim yet ominous glow, and it lunges for the prey's throat before eating it. Whenever angered or agitated, it sprays poisonous sweat secreted from its pores into the offender's eyes to protect itself. So, you may not know this, I've mentioned it in like 2 of my other videos at this point, but Umbreon was originally supposed to evolve from Eevee using a poison stone to give it the poison type of Eevee, I guess. So that's probably why it still has this poisonous sweat, and it's very weird. I don't see this as much of an issue. I know it seems to be fairly calm, and it is the kind of partner Pokemon to Eespy. Oh my goodness, Espeon. So I'm not gonna, say that, oh, it's gonna be super aggressive. No, it's probably fairly calm, probably a fairly quiet Pokemon. Think of it like a cat with a little bit of a poisonous sweat for some reason, I guess. I'm gonna be real. Treat Espeon like a plant. It gets weaker in the darkness, it absorbs sunlight for energy, and they are incredibly loyal, said to have awakened its psychic powers from its desire to protect its trainer. Some sources, however, say that it evolved those born from the need to keep itself safe. Both are possible. Espeon's velvety fur is so sensitive that it can sense minuscule shifts in the air, allowing it to predict the weather and its enemy's thoughts and movements. With less buildings around to block the sunlight, urban or country life might be the best for Espeon. Might also reduce stress, since it can read all movements, and too much stimuli might actually cause problems for it. Actually, a lot of psychic Pokemon can be potential problems if they throw a fit, but luckily many of them are either docile, friendly, or intelligent enough to not just blast everything within their radius. Though that is many of them, not all of them, which we will discuss later. I'm looking at you, Esper. Once again, Leafeon is just another plant. Let it bask in the sunlight, you never have to buy it food. It is also great at purifying air, so if you have allergies or asthma, like myself, anything along those lines, really, a Leafeon would be fantastic within your household, especially as it would be intelligent enough to be self-sufficient or tell you when it needs extra care. And they have a special aroma. Leafeon's aroma is similar to fresh grass in its youth. As it ages, this fragrance bears more of a resemblance to fallen leaves. The aroma is favored in Galar, where it is used to create a popular perfume. Glaceon doesn't really seem to have much of a temperament all in all. It's definitely a Pokemon that would be best suited for colder environments. After all, not every ice type can do well in warmer climates. Glaceon do hunt for prey, and his body temperature can drop below negative 75 degrees Fahrenheit, roughly negative 59 degrees Celsius. Which, yeah, I don't want to touch this Pokemon and get my skin frozen on contact. That isn't to say that it's always that cold, but I know that I like to hold my pets. I hold them like babies, I walk around the house, maybe I hold them over my shoulder, maybe I cuddle with them, whatever. And I don't want to have that and then suddenly be frozen to death after a few minutes, even in incredible heat in the house or room or whatever it is. Sylveon's ribbon-like feelers emit a soothing aura that erases any sense of hostility, enabling it to stop fights instantly. As mentioned in Sleep Style Deck, Sylveon's soothing aura can allow any nearby trainers to obtain a good night's sleep whenever they go to sleep. It also will wrap its feelers around its trainer's arms as they walk together, which allows it to read their feelings. When a fight breaks out between Sylveon and Dragon-type Pokemon, Sylveon will bravely charge at them, even if they are much bigger than itself, and in Galar, this feat is told as a fairy tale. So, Sylveon, which, hold on, let me just, the only evolution I have sitting in this household, brave, emotionally intelligent, great for people with depression, anxiety, or insomnia, and it's cute. It's a great, cute Pokemon, arguably one of the cutest evolutions, and it's an amazing pet. Another thing to keep in mind, though, is how Pokemon will be with children overall, especially if you're a first-time parent. So, Sylveon would actually be a phenomenal Pokemon for easing babies to sleep when necessary. Porygon, and all of its evolutions, minus Z, I suppose, would be great for anybody who's chronically on the internet. Due to its man-made origins, it does not need to breathe, eat, but it can still accept food if it is given to them. It has the ability to convert its body into digital data, allowing it to travel through cyberspace. Recently, it has become more helpful inside cyberspace by searching for any suspicious data that exists. Some believed Porygon has the power to potentially travel in space, despite the species not displaying that ability yet. So, low-effort pet. Its evolution is just better in general. Also, it looks, like a duck, and it's really cute in my opinion, so I like it a lot more that way. And if you are really bad, I just thought of this, if you're really bad and you hyper-focus on anything and don't remember to eat or drink, this is your reminder right now, by the way, a Porygon would be fantastic at that. It could help you remind you of these things while being so attached to the internet itself. So there's a little bit of opportunity there, and you'd have an internet friend in a Pokemon. Dratini, oddly enough, is a bottom feeder that wouldn't really do well in environments where it can constantly be seen. There is a reason why people call it the Mirage Pokemon after all. It likes to stay hidden and solitary. So maybe a good calm environment would be best fitting, maybe give it some rocks and water that it can hide under and around, and then maybe one day you can have a massive Dragonair and Dragonite, which are incredibly friendly and protective of what they love without actually being horribly difficult to train. They're just definitely going to need some good levels of exercise, and since they're so big, they might not be great house pets. We've moved our way into Johto, and we get to start with our starter Pokemon just as we did in Kanto. When we look at the Chikorita line, if you have anxiety or need anger management, insomnia management, whatever, this line is phenomenal. A soothing aroma wafts from the leaf, which can calm battling Pokemon. Chikorita's leaf is also used to sense temperature and humidity. It actively seeks out and enjoys the sun's warmth, and as mentioned in Pokemon Sleep, Chikorita uses the leaf to search for the coziest place to sleep in. It has a docile and gentle nature. When we move into Bayleaf, the aroma wafting from the leaves around its neck has a spicy scent. I bit my cheek, that's why I paused, ow. And has a various beneficial effect on those who inhale it. The fragrance has a combination of energizing, stimulating, and healing effects. As mentioned in sleep, any Pokemon sleeping near Bayleaf will feel invigorated. And finally, with Meganium, its petals release an aroma that calms aggressive feelings, and its breath has the power to revive dead grass and plants. Its soothing, regenerative powers can even affect those who stand nearby. It tends to be very docile, and is portrayed as a peacemaker in the Pokemon the Series Ruby and Sapphire episode Odd Pokemon Out. It can rarely be found living in grasslands. As mentioned in Pokemon Sleep, many Pokemon tend to sleep peacefully side by side with Meganium. So yeah, I might be a little bit biased, and I might still be on my high of seeing Chikorita in the Pokemon Legends ZA trailer. But I mean, come on. Where's my Chikorita? Dude, she's phenomenal. Look at her back there. Look at her back there. Boom. Beautiful. You're doing great, Horseradish, even though you're I believe it's an Asian pear. I believe it's what the Chikorita line is based off of. Go watch. If you want to figure out why it's called Horseradish, literally just go watch my Heart Gold. Can you beat Pokemon Heart Gold with Chikorita only? Which actually, as a side note, I really want to do more videos like that, but I don't want it to be like, can you beat it with Piplup only, or this or that. No, I want to like a bears only run, an insect only run, just for the fun of it. I don't do those fun little challenges that are quick and easy to do in one day anymore that I can have fun with editing. It's just fun little things. Also, come say hi in the streams. Anyway, I'm going to continue with our Pokemon here. Cyndaquil is a bit more timid in nature, typically hunches over itself to keep itself safe and inconspicuous. When it is defending itself, as it becomes angry and more aggressive, its flames will spout with more power. Strong flames are indicative of how awake and well rested it is. Once again, we are entering weird territory. Since these are fire-type Pokemon, we will give them the benefit of the doubt as we discussed based on temperament. While Quilava seems to be a bit more confident, but not dangerous, though the flames on its back may blaze brightly while asleep, you may not want to have them sleep in the bed as it may accidentally start fires. Typhlosion is the real problem though. It is capable of making anything go up in flames when angered and creating explosions by rubbing its fur together. When fully enraged, anything Typhlosion touches instantly goes up in flames. It is known to toss and turn while sleeping, and it's recommended to avoid a sleeping Typhlosion due to it unleashing blasts of fire from its back by accident. No, thank you. Not dealing with that in my home. I'm sorry. I love this line of Pokemon, but no. You can always find a way to give them proper enclosures at night, but that's also assuming it would evolve without combat. Totodile tends to be both playful and rough by nature, and has a habit of biting anything it sees, including its trainer. Despite its size, its jaws are capable of crushing anything, so it sometimes causes injuries. Turning one's back on a Totodile is considered to be a bad idea, as it can bite without warning. Its evolutions just honestly become stronger. More than anything, it would require more water, all in all, more space. It's just having a super-powered crocodile. I know, it's repetitive, broken record here, but if you can handle the biting of a Totodile, you could have a fun, bitey house pet, no different than a dog that has bite as its instinct. Everyone would love a Sentret, moreover a Furret, and anyone that says otherwise is lying to me. It's like the meme from SpongeBob. Anyone who says they don't like Krabby Patties has never tried one. Sentret has a cautious, timid nature and can often be seen standing on its tail to scout its surroundings. It will only sleep if there's another Sentret keeping watch, and will be too frightened to sleep if separated from its pack. In other words, Sentret would absolutely rely on you, it'd be codependent, and would snuggle plenty at bedtime, which could lead it to doing the same thing as its giant 5'11" or 1.8 meter Furret evolution. Despite its short limbs, it is very quick and agile. It allows for it to escape even when in the arms of a human, and its speed allows it to catch prey such as Rattata. It tends to burrow under the ground of meadows and other temperate grasslands, so it may feel most comfortable in an oversized enclosure to meet its natural needs, but might otherwise be fine if raised from a Sentret. It would be kind of funny to imagine somebody trying to wrangle their Furret together, only for it to keep slipping away from them while they have a vet appointment soon. Hoenn and Noctowl are another interesting case, considering that most places, if not like 90% of places, don't allow you to have owls as pets, but this is Pokemon, so who cares? Hoenn begins crying at the same time every day, and always will tilt its head in the same rhythm. This ability is due to a special internal organ that senses the world's rotation, allowing it to keep track of time. So they're great alarm clocks and just clocks in general. Personally, I don't like that. I'm not a fan of something that's going to constantly go off and make noise at a specific time every single day. And then, of course, Noctowl is literally just an owl. So if you like owls that can tell time and are intelligent without a high necessity for maintenance, there you go. Time for more bugs. Ladybug and Ledian are interesting if you want a cluster of Pokemon and like bugs. They're social, protective, self-sufficient, and Ladybug are shown to serve a role in pollinating fruit-producing plants, and is usually instructed to do so by means of a special whistle. However, like most Pokemon, it will respond to regular vocal commands as well. I imagine Ledian wouldn't be very different and would be a naturally occurring evolution. So, cute, bright-colored ladybugs that turn nocturnal upon evolution isn't bad. Okay, so Spinarak is a bit of a toss-up. We don't have a lot to go off of for its personality other than it being a 1'8" spider that is very patient in terms of waiting for its prey to fall into its webs. Eventually, it would evolve into a Rhyodos, which is a massive spider that I'd rather not have in my home, especially as the venom they produce can be not very lethal to incredibly lethal. It's got a range. And I don't know, there's not really spiders bigger than that. It does not sound great. Another line of Pokemon that I would defend to my dying breath, showing my bias here, is the Togepi line. The Pokemon the Series episode, The Case of the Canine Caper, showed that it can retract into its shell, which usually does so to sleep. And as mentioned in Pokemon Sleep, Togepi is known to roll around in its shell while sleeping. We'll go to sleep, wake up, and you're at the bottom of the hill 3 countries away. It is able to siphon the positive energy of others, storing that happiness in its shell, and then release it to those in need of it. That's actually really cute, and again, another great form of fighting depression. Early TCG cards state that Togepi is able to release poison from the spikes on its head, which it uses to chase away enemies. Interesting. It has a very joyful nature. As a result, it is said that it shares its joy with those who take care of it. Because of its disposition, Togepi is seen as a sign of good luck, especially if a trainer is capable of getting a sleeping Togepi to stand up. Its innocent smile is said to calm the soul, and it's shown in the Pokemon the Series Diamond and Pearl episode where no Togepi has gone before, that Togepi can act very maliciously at times, causing havoc and bad luck to its enemies. In the Pokemon series Ruby and Sapphire episode, A Togepi Mirage, it is shown that, when necessary, it can fly or levitate despite lacking wings. They are born within the Togepi paradise and appear to humans to spread kindness. Again, perfect for depression and anxiety. Even if you're having a bad day, imagine a Togepi just walking up to you and be like, "You're happy now!" And you're like, oh my gosh, I am. This is beautiful. So if you'd like to keep it as a pet, maybe considering traveling around the world as your job, because as it evolves naturally, you'll start to see why. Togetic can sense the kindness in other people and Pokemon's hearts. Whenever it spots a pure-hearted person, it tends to go to that person and shower them with happiness and glowing down called joy dust. To share its happiness, it is said to fly around the world, seeking these people. If it is not with kind people, however, it becomes dispirited and loses energy. And if it were to somehow evolve into Togekiss, they have long been known worldwide as bringers of blessings, being depicted on good luck charms since ancient times. It is said that Togekiss brings good luck simply by virtue of its existence. However, they only appear in peaceful places and have never been witnessed anywhere near conflict or turmoil, making their recent sightings exceptionally rare. It shares many kind gifts and sweet blessings when it visits peaceful places or sees people who avoid strife and respects the rights of others. However, Togekiss is a capable fighter and can use a powerful energy wave in battle. The real only downside is that these Pokemon aren't meant to be purely kept as a house pet outside of Togepi because of what they enjoy doing, what they will go and share their happiness with the world. But we can always enjoy the idea that they would always come home to at least visit us. Natu is a fun little guy that just vibes and needs a calm environment in the end. Due to its prophetic abilities, it is very cautious and easily spooked. It has the quirky behavior of staring at something until the thing moves. I mean, that's it. Natsu's cute, skittish little guy. It's a bird. Mareep isn't much of a house pet, but come on. Like, if you can shear it regularly without getting stunned and electrocuted, then you have a docile and incredibly soft Pokemon in your hands. In the end, it's more livestock than anything, but I'd be remiss if I did not keep it here. If you're a swimmer and you like mouse rabbits, kind of really goes from a mouse to a rabbit. Then you're in luck with the Azurill line. Azurill just needs its tail kept safe, so that way it has all the nutrients it needs to evolve. They are typically docile, and just don't make them mad, otherwise they're going to slam that nutrient ball into your shins, and that will hurt. Also, make sure they have plenty of water for them to swim in, of course. Marill is able to swim in strong water currents without being slowed down by the water's resistance, due to its water-repellent fur. Marill feeds on aquatic plants in addition to fishing for food. When it dives, its tail can be seen bobbing on the water's surface, and it will anchor its tail around a tree when fishing at the edge of a fast-moving stream. It never gets cold after swimming in cold water due to its water-repellent fur drying up quickly the moment it leaves the water. And then Azurill has a highly developed hearing that allows it to hear distances even when it is underwater. By keeping still and listening closely, it can identify prey even in the wild, fast-moving rivers. If it spots a drowning Pokemon, it will make an air bubble that helps them breathe or when Azurill are playing near the rivers. This would actually make a phenomenal Pokemon, especially if your family has a pool or you go to the beach often, you have other pets that like the water but aren't water types, you name it. It's a good, kind of protector Pokemon for the waters. Bondly is a baby that, when early on, needs to be bottle fed and otherwise really only cries because it needs to get rid of moisture within its body and balance everything out. It and its evolution just really like dry environments without getting wet, so unless you live in a desert, may not actually be the best. The Hoppip line cannot control where they fly. They will mature over time, evolving all the way through to Jumpluff, spread their seeds everywhere, and then literally die. That is flat out what the Pokédex says. That is their life cycle. Despite how cute they can be, I don't think I have the hearts to keep the dandelion cats as a pet and then watch it grow and slowly die. Apom are mischievous, but they're really not, a danger overall. They're just gonna need a lot of attention, plenty of bananas to keep them safe, alongside some places where they can freely hang from their tail. Alright, Sunkern and Sunflora, they're plants. What do you want from me? They're docile, they're happy, they're friendly, and if Sunflora gets too much sunlight, the only downside is the fact that its head will grow too big, it'll slam against the ground and it can't lift its head back up again. So, it's kind of a pet that's doomed to get too big. Wooper! And its entire line. Look, they eat bugs, they eat snakes, they eat other reptiles, fish, small mammals, you name it. They're based off of the Japanese Japanese giant salamander. And when you look at their environments, what routes they're on, they do follow similar diets. You can look at their encounter rates, so on and so forth. If you want the details on that, go watch my ecosystem videos. I break that down hard, route by route, to truly figure out, with realism and the Pokemon themselves staying true to their Pokédexes and information, what they eat in the wild naturally. And I can guarantee Wooper in its line is eating an Ekans until it evolves into an Arbok, and then Arbok is eating Wooper, but I digress. Nevertheless, they're friendly, dopey, and just need to stay in moist environments. That's why they stay underwater, in caves, or swamps. So, if you can provide that, maybe give them a little spritz, then you're good to go. You have a friend in them. Murkrow are going to be very similar to real-life Corvids in the end. They're intelligent, can learn to speak, and they like shiny objects and enjoy social activity. And if it really loves you, it will actually bring you those shiny objects. It's a super-powered crow. Who would have guessed? Keep saying it. If you can get used to being scared, then one ghost Pokemon that you can have as a pet without real danger is a Mischievous. As a nocturnal Pokemon, it spends its days sleeping in darkness and its nights startling people with mischievous tricks. Since it loves watching frightened people, it is known to yank and bite at people's hair and sneak up on them and cry and shriek in a way a child would. In the animated series, Mischievous is shown to be able to use its hair to grasp objects and other Pokemon as if they were its hands. So, if you don't mind heart attacks every once in a while, solid. Why not? And Wobbuffet also wouldn't be bad if you don't mind the constant explosions of sound whenever they smack each other. Reason being is that they will absolutely slam into each other as Why Not and counterattack with the same force, increasing over time as they prepare to become Wobbuffet. Luckily, Wobbuffet is a docile Pokemon that will never attack first, so it might be a nice, friendly pet in the house that can defend you from intruders if they hit Wobbuffet. I have to at least mention Girafarig here. There's no way you're having a Girafarig as a house pet, but it's always been one of my favorite Pokemon, that and Farigiraf, because of the fact that they are giraffes. I love them so much. they belong in the savannas, unfortunately. If you can figure it out, you know what? They're not a bad Pokemon. They eat plenty of leaves. Call it a day. Snubbull and Granbull are some Pokemon I've covered so many times, and there's a couple of these where I'm not going to have to read my script at all. But, like, they're just bulldogs. And the whole point of them is that they do have what is considered in the world of Pokemon a little bit of an ugly, scary face that will be used to help drive off predators when they try to take Miltank from farms, as if Miltank needs any actual help defending themselves. Nevertheless, they're great as being guard dogs, but at the same time, they get really, really unhappy whenever they accidentally scare someone away, because they themselves are actually very timid Pokemon that are scared very easily. In the Pokemon world, they're said to be very popular with women, and I just can't. For me, I don't really care for them. Also, Snubbull's dress is its loose, floppy skin. That just seals the deal of no for me. Teddiursa is a mistake in the making, considering that keeping bears as a pet never goes well at all, especially since Mama Bear is likely close by. How else do you get a Teddiursa? Remoraid and Octillery actually wouldn't be too terrible. They just require enough good food, and Octillery does directly state that it loves fuss from its trainers, though is rather docile when domesticated. This means it is a Pokemon that requires a lot of attention and a good aquarium with plenty of places such as jars to hide in. Though I wouldn't be surprised if it did decide to leave the aquarium, kind of waltz all over the house, and then steal a new hiding spot that it can take back to its tank, and you wouldn't really know until you actually paid enough attention. Houndour really is just any other dog, modeled after their Doberman. It is intelligent, incredible at hunting, communicates with its barks and howls, and is known to be loyal and obedient to their trainers. It might howl while asleep though, and despite the danger of its evolution, Houndoom, we will assume that it will continue to stay loyal to a trainer that treats them right. Once again though, this is definitely a Pokemon that needs a job, needs to have dedicated time and training, otherwise it will ruin whatever it wants when it throws a fit. So, keep it plenty stimulated mentally, and it'll also serve as a great guard dog. Smeargle is a painter beagle. The only downside is that it might paint your walls with random symbols, but just put up a bunch of canvases and you're fine. We have reached Generation 3. Welcome to Hoenn, and we can start with Treecko. Because of its territorial nature, it is known to be a protector of the forest's trees. Treecko is known for its calm and collected personality, and it will never panic under any circumstances, even when faced with a bigger foe. It's a little, big dog syndrome with a little dog, although it still does have power. This is actually one of the few plant grass Pokemon that may not actually necessarily evolve with age, since we do see Old Man Treecko in the anime. But at least we get that protective and brave little lizard, which actually might serve us a little bit better, since, it's not going to evolve, which means it stays a house pet. You give it a nice little basking rock and a room, and you are good to go. Within Torchic's belly, the Pokemon has a flame sac filled with a burning fire. This internal flame causes Torchic to feel warm if hugged. The warmth feels similar to a warm water bottle. As long as Torchic is alive, the internal flame will burn continuously. It dislikes darkness, as it cannot see in its surroundings. Aren't actual chickens, night blind? I feel like that's the case. I didn't look it up, I was tempted to, and I never did. Torchic will follow its trainer with unsteady steps, so ultimately just make sure you have some night lights around and you can have yourself a cozy little friend on cold nights. According to its Pokemon Ranger browser entry, Mudkip is a very docile Pokemon. It is also known to be very strong, crushing boulders larger than itself, and will sleep in the wild by burying itself in the mud soil at the water's edge or bottom of a river. So, have a little mud enclosure for it within your home, and if you want to find out which Pokemon are the strongest Pokemon out there in lore, looking at every single Pokedex entry that says anything about how strong they are, I have a video on that too, baby. Hours of content! If you want a challenge to train, the Poochyena line is one that will require a lot of attention and care. Poochyena themselves bark loudly, but are actually quite cowardly, and then a Mightyena will only listen to the most experienced of trainers. Otherwise, they are incredibly intelligent, will not give up a hunt, and will at least show how fond it is of you by licking your face. My boy Ed, oh, I don't have Ed out right now, that's okay. Yeah, Ed's a Mightyena that I've loved on this channel for such a long time. Hard to resist, having Ed as a Pokemon. Okay, so Zigzagoon is a really interesting one that is both a terrible pet, but a pet that we made in the Pokemon world nevertheless, because Galarian Zigzagoon is the OG Zigzagoon, the OG Kiss fan out there right now, right? And it was a Pokemon that would actively, consistently attack people, or really anything that would cross their path for that matter, being very pugilist, very pugilicious. I now need a Fergalicious song, but it's pugilicious. Anywho, with that, humans thought that Galarian Zigzagoon was constantly, like, trying to be friends with us. Every single time it would just slam into us. We're like, oh, you're so cute. We picked it up, and we're like, you're gonna be our best friend now. We're gonna have some tacos later. And legitimately, that Galarian Zigzagoon would be angry and so upset over it all, but eventually just kind of gave up, becoming the Zigzagoon that we originally knew and loved. So it's really weird in terms of like its friendliness, in terms of is it actually a good pet or not, or anything else. They will literally never be able to run in a straight line. They like to pick up items, store them away, store food in their cheeks, especially when they become a little noon. So that one's a toss-up, and it's no different than having a Tanuki, which is a raccoon dog, which gets confused with an actual raccoon, or a dog that looks like a raccoon. Pokemon's confusing sometimes, yo. Wurmple, it's a bug. Sure, it'll become Dustox or Beautifly, but I'd rather not accidentally bother Beautifly while it's feeding from a flower, and then it turns around and just stabs me, making me the next juice box. No thanks. And if Dustox throws a fit, it will release scales that will make you sick. I'm good. A lot of the bugs are going to be the same as well. Lurten needs plenty of water, but it is super friendly and easy to care for as long as you have food and a safe environment. It'll just never really be able to live on land, or else it'll dehydrate, grow weak, and perish. Taillow is going to have a lot of attitude, since Taillow is very gutsy and will stand up to powerful opponents without backing down. So if it decides it doesn't want to listen to you, you might have a bit of an argument between the two of you. Otherwise, it will at least tell you when it's hungry, because it will cry very loudly. Wingull is a literal seagull. Feed it a hot dog. I don't know, man. If you're a sailor or someone who goes out on the water, fantastic. You could have a great home and a great sea partner Pokemon with that opportunity. Otherwise, they're gonna eat whatever they want. The Ralts line is another Pokemon that would be great for anyone improving or aiming to improve their mental health and have a good companion. Ralts uses its horn to read people and Pokemon's emotions. Warm feelings cause its body to feel warm as well, but it hides if it senses hostility. If its trainer is in a cheerful mood, Ralts also becomes cheerful and joyous. Ralts prefers to hang out with people of cheerful nature more than those with gloomy ones. Regardless, Ralts will show no discrimination to anyone based on age or gender. And this Pokemon has a lot of potential to evolve just by being around positive environments. As it evolves into Kirlia, it'll gain more power and enjoy dancing on sunny mornings, said to grow more beautiful when around a trainer with positive emotions, and then evolving finally into Gardevoir or Gallade, both being protectors, like incredible protectors, that are strongly emotionally bonded to their trainer, are incredibly intelligent, and the only thing to worry about is if you end up in danger, how much damage will they cause. They might also need regular beds and everything. Again, this all boils down to being incredibly awkward, just like Mr. Mime, with a lot of our humanoid Pokemon. I love Whismur, great little Pokemon, great little design, but at the same time, it will make us go deaf. Pass. Skitty is the definition of no thoughts, head empty, in the form of a cat. It is fascinated by moving objects and chases them, being known to chase its own tail to the point of becoming dizzy by it. Otherwise, it can kind of actually be difficult to earn its trust, but it is popular, or very popular, due to its adorable looks and behavior. And even if it does evolve into Delcatty, grooming. Plenty of grooming. Nothing too crazy. Minun and Plusle are adorable little electric mouse cheerleaders that love to stay together as much as possible, so if you get one, you have to get the other. We're having another ferret situation here. They can both promote blood circulation and energize others, though cleaning them will be a little bit of a fuss as they both hate water, which, now that I think about it, I don't know how I feel about bathing any electric-type Pokemon whatsoever, especially if they hate water. The Badoo line is great if you live in clean areas. It will release spores, though they are not toxic as long as the water they are drinking from stays clean. When it would eventually evolve into Roselia, just don't take the roses it has and you won't get stabbed by it. Their aroma that they let off will bring a sense of serenity as well. Don't give it a stone to evolve into Roserade. It is not a great idea. They do like to cause a little bit of pain, wrapping foes in vines and then slowly poisoning them or quickly poisoning them depending on how they feel. So maybe not the best idea. Spoink is another incredibly cute Pokemon. They're overall depicted as being a friendlier species, but of course there's always a concern of it being stopped from jumping at any point, which of course if they stop jumping, their heartbeat stops beating. So no real opportunity to relax with Spoink, unfortunately, which takes some points away from it for me. I feel like Spinda will just accidentally knock everything over throughout the house as it tries to run away from you from one room to the next, which is really cute to think about in concept or deal with a day or two, maybe see it in an animation, but I don't want a deadly accident occurring. I'm a little bit of a worrywart, I have to admit, when it comes to the care of some of my animals. Swablu is the adorable little hat that you've always needed. Swablu does not like dirty surroundings, so it cleans things up with its cottony wings diligently. It uses streams, freshwater springs, or a man-made shower to wash its wings when they become dirty from polishing. Swablu is very friendly and largely unafraid of humans. As a result, it frequently perches on people's heads like a fluffy hat. And it's just a little bird, likely eating large nuts, so it's going to be very easy to take care of, especially since it likes things clean. Meaning that even when it makes a big mess, as birds are very apt to do when breaking open seeds or shedding feathers, Swablu will likely clean up its own mess, making it another very self-sufficient and very friendly Pokemon. I will say, I didn't have it noted here, if it does evolve into Altaria somehow, at least with Altaria, it has super comfy feathers, it actually enjoys the cuddles, it will sing you to sleep, everything. It is a great Pokemon all in all. Corphish were originally foreign Pokemon that were imported as pets, it turns out. They eventually turned up in the wild, and it is a very hardy Pokemon, which has helped it greatly increase its population. In other words, this can be a very difficult Pokemon to keep as a pet, and most people aren't prepared for the amount of care it will need. Just because it's hardy, immune to external factors that can cause it to die, feel sick, whatever, doesn't mean it won't be picky about its environment. Why do you think Crawdaunt throws out every other Pokemon, or just flat out eats them, out of its ponds and lakes that it calls home? Yet for some reason, they allow Feebas to stay. Originally, I thought that was because, Feebas is such a shabby Pokemon, other Pokemon don't pay attention to it. But Crawdaunt will throw out Magikarp, which are just as, even if they're not shabby looking, are just as docile and ineffective to the environment. So there's a chance, for some reason, that Crawdaunt actually likes Feebas. Speaking of, Feebas and Melodic have been shown to be good pets and can evolve without having to be in battle. They just need the right amount of care and love, and it's perfect for those of you that want to be Pokemon contestants, showing your Pokemon off in beauty contests and whatever else you may say. This actually goes back to the Corphish thing again, because just because it can live in any environment, no matter how tough or polluted or dangerous it might be, doesn't mean that it deserves the bottom rung of treatment. It is through giving this Pokemon the love and care that it deserves and needs, not the bare minimum, that it evolves and becomes a peacemaker Pokemon that is intelligent, self-sufficient, and can give off a dazzling display of color. Castform changes its appearance dependent on the actual weather itself, but no matter the form, it actually doesn't cause any huge issues unless you squeeze the water out of the rainy form like the sponge that it is, or it changes forms while you're touching it, because you could be cuddling with it, and then suddenly it turns into its ice form and you get frozen, which actually isn't that bad, it just gets really cold. Otherwise, it is a very friendly Pokemon that serves as a natural weather indicator. I don't know if it eats, but it is composed only of H2O molecules, so maybe it only needs to drink water to survive, lowering its needs overall. Kecleon is just a chameleon that gets very angry or jealous if you can't find it when you play hide and seek, which it loves to do, and it is of course incredibly good at, since it can turn invisible. After all, it does camouflage itself all the time, which means you're going to lose very often, and it's probably going to get upset fairly often, unless you have a way to track it easier, which might make it a lot happier. Shuppet is actually phenomenal, while Banette is not being considered for this. The horn on Shuppet Shuppet, oh my goodness, collects the negative emotions of people on which this Pokemon feeds. The emotion it feeds on include anger, jealousy, resentment, and malice, so some people are grateful for its presence. This also helps Shuppet become slowly stronger. A Shuppet sleeping near the sleeping person will eat up their dark feelings. In other words, another fantastic Pokemon for anyone who might have troublesome thoughts and a hard time controlling them, allowing you to sleep easier or at least be calmer overall, and it's nocturnal for you night owls out there. Chingling and Chimecho are really cute, but if they cry, they will release ultrasonic waves that will cause headaches in humans and harm other Pokemon. Also, Chimecho does hunt prey, and I've talked about this before, it does hunt our owl Pokemon. It's crazy, the evidence is there, but if you move past that, it sticks with berries and nuts as a diet. A Pokemon that a lot of people made arguments for is Absol, a loyal companion, a great guard dog that can sense incoming danger, disaster even, and a Pokemon that is overall a pacifist, hating to take part in combat unless it absolutely has to, and then it will just wipe the floor. It's also super fluffy, so how can you say no to the little angel? I love snow runs, and all I have to do is feed it ice? The problem with it, though, is that it's a terrible house pet, because for the betterment of its health, it needs to be in incredibly cold environments, otherwise it will get sick and pass away. Love discs are kept in captivity all the time and are signs of love and affection, even being marketed as such by hotels within the Pokemon world that will release them in front of couples that stay at their hotel, all because they are seen as a sign of good luck for their relationship. A few people made arguments for Beldum, which just caught me off guard, honestly, so let's look into that info. Even though Beldum is mechanical, it still has emotions, a need to eat, and a way of reproducing. Beldum's body lacks blood and is instead made of cells that are all magnets. There's the problem right there, officer! Another magnet-based Pokemon that if you live in the modern age and have technology, if it gets angry, it will ruin nearby machines. I, unfortunately, have to pass, or I have to start living in a log cabin. No thanks. Sinnoh, 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 Sinnoh. I can hear the piano already. Turtwig is another phenomenal pet. I don't care how much space has to be made for, I will make that space. All mortal possessions can go to Turtwig, as it is another perfect pet Pokemon. My bias is showing, but that's a-okay. Tell me why I'm wrong. On a very healthy Turtwig, the shell should feel moist. A small seedling grows on a brown patch on its head. This seedling will wilt if the Pokemon becomes thirsty. Since it is a plant-based Pokemon, Turtwig usually nourishes itself through photosynthesis. It becomes more energetic when exposed to enough sunlight. It also drinks water, which hardens its soil-based shell. If it evolves by sunlight, it only becomes calmer, more docile, and protective of other Pokemon as it becomes Grotto. It can find water and wells where it can drink all that it needs, which, I mean, I guess that could be problematic in a city or dealing with trespassing, but whatever. Although it can also attract other Pokemon, so you might want to be careful if you don't want to deal with the additional Pokemon such as, say, Pachirisu. Luckily, they'll all be friendly if they're staying on its back. They even produce fruit and nuts, so you can harvest them from what could be the healthiest soil possible once it is a Torterra, and it is having all those Pokemon on its back, of course. Chimchar is definitely a super energetic Pokemon that is going to require plenty of time and attention, but at least with this fire Pokemon, we do get confirmation that if the flame goes out, it is perfectly fine and can control it at will, even putting its own flames out when it goes to sleep. So, if you want a safe, energetic, fire-type Pokemon monkey, then this is the best bet. I just said monkey for a chimp. Shame. Piplup has a strong sense of self-pride. Because of its pride, it has a hard time accepting food from humans and bonding with its caretakers. It will even puff out its chest after it falls down, which it often does due to its poor walking abilities. In other words, it's a cat in the form of a penguin, which wait for it to want attention from you. And the independent little Pokemon will respect you more and love you more for respecting that space. Starly is said to have a very harsh cry and singing that tends to be annoying, so I personally will have to pass on that one. I do love Bidoof. Everyone loves Godoof. It's a beaver, though, that deserves love. It is agile, not easily perturbed, but you need a lot of wood for it to gnaw on, not just to make it happy, but to actually ensure the teeth don't grow too much and cause health problems. it's a rodent in the end, at least within the Pokemon world. Kricketot could be really cute to have as a Pokemon, especially if you're a musician and need a friendly little Pokemon to play the xylophone or marimba for you, as those are the sounds that it can mimic. They also enjoy autumn nights, so if that's your favorite season, represent, then you'd be in luck as they gather together and play their songs in groups. Excited trembling is a sign that a Shinx is generating tremendous amounts of electricity. It can send signals to other Shinx by shining the tip of its tail and shaking it. It has an aggressive nature, thus taming a Shinx is said to take great patience. As mentioned in Pokemon Sleep, Shinx can create electricity when it rolls around while asleep. So it's not impossible, but it is a Pokemon that definitely needs more time and care than your average pet. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a burned down house from all the electric discharge. Alright, I'm skipping a few because a number of them are just Electric Squirrel, Otter that swims fast, and both shouldn't be in captivity to begin with without a great deal of attention or care. But then we have a common pet once more in Baneri. They can be a bit more skittish, but will also roll their ears up upon releasing them, can smash a boulder to pieces. So, do not corner the skittish bunny. They can also use this ability to jump high and otherwise just follow normal rabbit behavior. I will note that they do have either Runaway or Klutz as their primary ability, meaning that they aren't just skittish, but they will also struggle to hold anything in their hands. So hopefully it doesn't get curious about anything on the counters and then drops it. Glameow has sharp claws and a powerful helical tail, and its eyes are capable of using hypnotic powers. It tends to be spiteful, fickle, and even cowardly, having a tendency to hook its claws into the nose of its trainer if it's not fed. When it's happy and purring with affection, it demonstrates movements with its tail like a dancing ribbon. As it has a domesticated quality, it tends to appear in urban areas. Glameow is rather popular amongst trainers due to its fickle nature, and is known to be a very cunning opponent when faced in battle, which occurs only if it is provoked. Why does that sound interesting to anyone? Like, I get the idea of desperately wanting to be loved by an animal, but I'm not dealing with claws in my nose. I will at least mention its evolution, as despite its disrespectful and scary nature, Purugly is rather popular. The reason is due to its beautiful fur, more comfortable than even Velveteen. That does not make up for its attitude, in my opinion, unfortunately. Though it is a fat cat, which is adorable. Look, if you really want Stunky as a pet, I would say just remove the glands from it like a real skunk. But after researching it further, it actually turns out that this is a cruel practice comparable to declawing a cat. So yeah, no Stunky, no skunk pet, unless you're willing to deal with the potential spraying that will happen, and then forgetting that it sprayed you, and then it sprays you again, and then you stink, and you forget why you stink, because that's actually what its stench can do to you. Shout out to another bird. It can mimic other birds, which is what birds in real life can do already anyway, and there's a lot of really cool birds that will actually there's one in specific, I can't remember the name of it. Someone's gonna know. There are so many of you in the comments that know things that I don't, let's be real here. But there's one bird out there that can mimic not only other birds, children, people laughing, cars honking, and everything. And it is part or one of their 3 parts towards their mating ritual to try and convince a mate to be with them, which it's a dazzling display, really. I saw it in a documentary. So another person out there did make an argument for Gible, so I have to consider it here. Gible has tremendously strong jaws that it uses to bite enemies and prey alike, dragging the latter back to its nest. I'm sorry, I should not giggle at a Gible, this tiny little thing grabbing a giant Pokemon, and you just hear the sliding of the body as it's just slowly waddling backwards to its cave. It's such a small Pokemon, it's gonna waddle. It makes it so less intimidating. However, even while biting, it often hurts itself because of clumsiness. This sometimes causes its teeth to chip and fall off in the process. But Gible is never bothered by this because the teeth will grow back after a few days. As shown in the animated series, Gible is capable of eating through most types of metal. Yeah, all I need is for this chompy little boy to be teething one day, chews through the entire foundation of my home, and we don't have a home anymore. I like the Pokemon, have to pass on it being a pet. So I accidentally ignored it earlier, but with Munchlax and Snorlax, the only way that you're actually keeping them as a pet is if you had a deal with a restaurant to give you a bunch of leftovers they produce, so that way food waste could be reduced, which I'm a supporter of with proper health practices, or alternatively, you were super rich and could afford the sheer cost of actually feeding these Pokemon. Like most fighting-type Pokemon, Riolu naturally has superhuman strength, stamina, and endurance. It is capable of making long journeys on foot in a short amount of time. It is a playful, energetic, and loyal Pokemon. It is also known to be tough and hard-working. It will read the minds of humans to assure whether or not they are pure of heart. As mentioned in sleep-style decks, it tends to sleep in an unusual position, which is sitting up while not lying down, similar to Lucario does. It is believed that Riolu is pushing itself hard and dreaming of the day it evolves into Lucario. So we see here another dog-like Pokemon, which is really a coyote in the end, that will eventually force itself to evolve into Lucario on its own means, as long as it is also given enough friendship. It could make a really good Pokemon for young children to have as they grow up, or since it can read aura and emotions, it could assist with therapy or similar practices. And considering its nature, it will evolve into Lucario without direct battle. Now, Lucario is considered to be prideful and extremely loyal to its trainer. It also seems to have a natural sense of justice, as it only trusts trainers with righteous hearts. They are primarily carnivores, and since they have the steel typing, they can't be poisoned, which means they can be fed chocolate, as shown in the anime. They're also going to be phenomenal with communication, since they can communicate through telepathy and understand human speech. So they're going to take a lot of effort and attention, but it will become a worthwhile, lifelong partner. Unova is one of a kind, as we're reaching over the halfway point now, being able to talk about Snivy. This tail of it can perform photosynthesis, allowing Snivy to move more quickly and adding an edge to its moves. However, the tail will begin to droop when Snivy loses energy. It can use its vines with incredible adaptive and dexterity skills to make up for having short arms. This Pokemon has a calm and collective demeanor and is very intelligent. Snivy prefers to be alone and avoid groups whenever it can. It's basically a cat, in other words, once again, but a snake plant with the attitude of a cat. Go figure. And that doesn't really change as it evolves. Servine has an inflated sense of pride, which is one of Servine's weaknesses. Due to this pride, it will be unable to cooperate with other Pokemon for a long while, and at least with it becoming superior, it opens up a little bit more and is deemed the Lord of the Forest, acting as a really, really good guard just by glaring at individuals to stop their movements. I too would be scared of a giant snake just glaring at me. Tepig is a nimble Pokemon capable of blowing fire from its snout. It can use its speed to both dodge and confound enemies before striking back. Instead of flames, it will spout thick black smoke when it is ill though. It is well known for being a ravenous glutton for food and will roast berries before eating them, but occasionally gets overexcited and burns them. Easy indicator when sick, food motivated, and otherwise actually another fairly safe fire type Pokemon. Just make sure to watch your food, otherwise it will eat everything you leave unattended on a plate. Oshawott is an otter, but it is relatively social as otters tend to be. Oshawott learned to maintain its scout chops, by watching humans use wet snows. So we can assume that they're going to be fairly friendly with us in the end. Otherwise, they're just kind of cute, I have to admit, and its evolutions honestly just become more noble, so they wouldn't be too bad if you could find a way to evolve them without it being battle-related. The Lillipup line, another set of Pokemon that are actively praised within the world of Pokemon for being great pets through all of its forms. Lillipup is an intelligent, courageous Pokemon capable of judging its opponent's strength. Its intelligence and obedience makes it popular for beginners due to how easy it is to raise. That's a point right there. It is also extremely popular with trainers living in apartments due to it never yelping. There's another point for those of you who are living within apartment complexes. Due to it being smarter than the average child, Lillipup never forgets the love or abuse it receives while being raised. Herdier is very loyal, smart, friendly, and it will help its trainer raise other Pokemon. However, it will not obey anyone who disrespects it. It has helped trainers since long ago. It has also been theorized to have been the first Pokemon to have been partnered with humans based on what was discovered on the walls of caves. And yes, I have a video actually discussing who was truly the first partner Pokemon that was a dog. Its dense fur continues to grow endlessly. As Herdier's fur grows, it becomes more springy and impervious. However, the fur makes Herdier difficult to train due to how much it costs to groom its dense fur. Pokemon is just doing all the analysis work for me here, so this is fairly easy. We move on to Stoutland, who has an intelligent, good-natured, valiant, and trustworthy disposition, being a partner of choice for many. its fur is thick enough to protect itself and others against freezing temperatures. Due to this, every household in cold regions kept a Stoutland for warmth in the past. Stoutland is known to rescue humans that are either stranded in the mountains or at sea, so it's a really good swimmer. Stoutland found in Alola look fairly uncomfortable, however, likely due to the heat. Stoutland enjoys spending time with humans and can warm up to them in just 3 days. It has been used by parents as babysitters to watch their children, which seems irresponsible, but it's a Pokemon world. It is known to be very proud of its impressive mustache, the reason being due to its length determining Stoutland's social status among its species. This whole trio of Pokemon is not only good for you, your family, as a loyal partner Pokemon or pet Pokemon that's, yeah, sure, it'll become really big if you let it, but it's just another dog in the end. But it is intelligent enough, obedient enough, and caring enough to actually help raise your children and other Pokemon while being a great guard dog and being a savior when it comes to land or sea, for that matter. Phenomenal. Purloin is oddly enough not described as a house cat, though this would also make sense since it does enjoy stealing from people and Pokemon. Honestly, if I did have it as a pet, I'd rather not walk into a store and be accused of stealing anything all because my own Pokemon has sticky fingers and couldn't keep them to itself. Pansage, Pansear, Panpour are actually phenomenal together, especially if you love cooking. Who would have guessed? It's almost as if that's how they were introduced within the world. Healthy and revitalizing leaves, one that loves to share heat and cook, and one that can give nutrient-rich water. If you don't mind not buying food other than for the monkeys here, you could survive off of whatever they give you, assuming the caloric intake is enough. Munna and Musharna are both a boon and a bane. Reasoning for this is that they will just eat Dream Mist. They're fairly happy Pokemon, easy to take care of. Though, on one hand, Munna, I said Munna earlier, Munna. On one hand, Munna will end up creating Black Dream Mist if you have a bad dream, which can be explosive. And Musharna, if it has that darker mist coming out of it, it could cause your nightmares to come true, to be entered into the real world if you go near it. And both of those situations, while fairly obvious that you shouldn't go near it, sound terrible. Because guess what? If it's eating Dream Mist, imagine how close it is to you. Imagine where it is. So if you wake up in the middle of the night, like me, who wakes up multiple times in the night, go use the bathroom, I'm gonna wake up probably after a nightmare, which happens fairly often, and I'm gonna look up, and it's gonna be right there. The Musharna's gonna be right there. Black Dream Mist, giant centipedes are gonna come true. No thank you. Pidove are a funny one to consider. They're not very intelligent. They will try to always listen to the trainer's commands, but it doesn't always understand them. They're forgetful, so they'll wait for new orders even though they just received them. And in Detective Pikachu, their forgetfulness extends to them not even remembering their own names. In the Pokemon Journeys the Series episode, there's a new kid in town. It extends to forgetting whatever scared them even. So imagine them getting scared, turning around, running away, screaming, then be like, oh, that was weird, walking back, and then screaming again, and then running off. That's it, just on repeat. Though, many trainers love Pidove due to its friendliness and sincere nature, which, it's one of my favorite bird Pokemon, so, yeah. Audino is just another Chansey, so if you like an in-home doctor that doesn't feed you free eggs, there you go. But, it's got a stethoscope, so that's cute. The Sawano line is perfect for fashionistas, and more specifically, Levany, or Leavanny, I'm not saying it that way, it takes so long, is perfect for it if you have young children. Leavanny's arm blades are powerful enough to slice through a tree trunk with a single swing. It generally lives in forests, and is very parental and uses its cutters and the sticky silk it produces to create clothing made of leaves for small Pokemon. Levany is known to make warm wrappings for young Sawano. It also warms its eggs with fermenting fallen leaves. While usually gentle, it will not attack anyone or anything that harms young Pokemon. It is named after a nanny after all. Cottony and Whimsicott would be difficult at first if you have a cotton allergy, especially since Cottony really can't control where it flies, so expect cotton everywhere. But Whimsicott is a little prankster. Whimsicott can manipulate its body to pass through cracks no matter how narrow. It takes advantage of this ability as a notorious prankster, moving things and leaving cotton balls behind. However, should it get wet, it will be too heavy to move and answer for its pranks. Whimsicott likes to spend time in the sunlight in order to grow its cotton, though it will tear off and scatter the cotton should it start to build up too much. At least there will never be a dull moment around the house with a little Whimsicott around. Look, Petalil and Lilligant are dancing plants in the sun once again. You can eat the bitter but revitalizing leaves of a Petalil, and you can try to make Lilligant's flower bloom, but without a lot of care and attention, that will only wilt. The flower emits a sweet-smelling aroma and is believed to have a relaxing effect on those exposed to the scent. The flower's fragrance differs slightly depending on what soil it was cultivated in. The oil made by Lilligant's flowers has a sublime scent and is very expensive to buy. So, sure, force it to bloom. Collect the oil. Be a bad person. I like them as Pokemon, but I don't like how they're necessarily treated within Pokemon lore, and just like with any other Pokemon, they need more attention and care. If you want Darumaka as a pet, you just want a child with infinite energy that will eventually fall asleep, wake up, and be a menace all over again. So I'm not sure where the appeal is there, other than it being cute. Maractus is a mariachi cactus. I say that every single time that I get to mention Maractus because it's just the truth. But with this Pokemon, it actually may not work out to have within a home, considering that it is a full-on cactus and it is vital to the desert wildlife. With that, I actually oppose the idea of it being a pet. So Crustle was thrown at me as another potential. I will admit, Dwebble is cute. And if you like hermit crabs, you have a hermit crab. It even gets the same anxiety a hermit crab does if it loses its shell, and that can continue through its evolution into Crustle. Although it is stronger and can protect itself better now. You could use it as a moving chair if you really wanted to, but I don't really like Crustle all that much. I love Dwebble though. Dwebble's really adorable. One you may not have expected is Trubbish, which is actually a better pet than expected because it will stop letting out the foul odors it produces once it is with someone it trusts and is happy with. It can also communicate, as Trubbish's ear-like tufts stand straight up when startled, are lifted if happy, and lowered if it is feeling down. So, the ultimate plan is this. Befriend a Trubbish, have it eat trash, and the odors will be gone as the world is cleaned. Just gotta get past that initial smell. Zorua and Zoroark are a tricky duo, almost literally considering that they are the trickster fox Kitsune. Zorua is said to have a timid nature, which led to the development of its illusion abilities. When a Zoroark takes the form of a human, it is capable of human speech. It can make convincing illusions of attacks, and these illusions are extremely realistic, enough to fool even cameras and make one believe they're being physically affected, though the illusion does not have any direct physical effect. Lonely trainers tend to use Zoroark to create illusions in order to ease their own burden of solitude. So, they can be great Pokemon if you're lonely, and if you can be loyal to them, they can be incredibly loyal to you. Especially if you manage to convince their Hisuian forms to not murder you. A Pokemon that I had placed my bets on to be a top tier Pokemon right off the bat was actually Minccino and Cinccino, which are both friendly Pokemon that will actively clean up after themselves, and more for that matter. Plus, they are chinchillas, which are adorable. The tail they have is long and particularly furry. This tail acts like a broom or mop, as Minccino uses it to clean its den. Minccino also uses the tail to brush others of its species as a form of greeting. The one with the fluffier tail will be more prideful. It has a fondness for shiny objects and prefers clean habitats, and it is obsessed with cleaning dirty items. Minccino also keeps its tail clean. When it gets dirty, it will wash it in clean spring water. Cinccino's fur feels amazing to touch, and it repels dust and prevents static electricity buildup. Keep them clean, keep them happy, buy spring water. If you want a quiet in-house fortune teller that is a little bit depressed and makes you feel awkward because it's another humanoid Pokemon but is loyal, you can have the Gothita line. They literally become apathetic once they become Gothitelle because they realize everything and everyone dies and they can't stop it, so they get sad. And you have a sad Pokemon, and now you're depressed. Good job. Okay, I'm not allowed to have Solosis or its line as a pet, even though they're incredibly adorable, because if I did, I would be far too tempted to wait until it's not expecting it, pop open its protective shell, and drink the liquid in order to gain infinite knowledge. The problem with that is that said liquid is incredibly toxic and would kill you rather quickly. But nevertheless, I would probably do it because I don't have proper impulse control. Duckling. It's a duck. It evolves into a swan. You typically don't want those as pets, or at least you don't want a swan as a pet. I'm ready to move on. They really do just have the temperament of happy ducks and happy swans. The Vanillite line literally cannot be kept as an indoor house pet. It would be great outside, requiring nothing but water, but you would absolutely need to live in cold environments, otherwise it would die. Or I guess you could throw it inside of a giant freezer if that would make it happy at all. I'm willing to argue day and night that Joltik would be an amazing Pokemon pet. It just needs a little bit of food and for you to wear fuzzy wool socks all the time so that way you generate static electricity, so that way it can feed that and put it into its electric pouch and live happily. All because jumping spiders are adorable and the fuzzy little Joltik is honestly no different. Overall, Allergium has quite the welcoming and informative behavior. It is willing to help in stressful and otherwise difficult situations. However, Allergium can become fully involved in something it feels to be important and protect that with its life. If it stands near a television, strange scenery will start appearing on the screen, which is said to be its home. We need like a VHS horror with an Allergium and it doing that. And for people to go through their entire story trying to like figure out what it really is, being afraid of it, and then by the end of it, it's actually not a big issue and we have a nice happy ending. Now, ultimately, the only real downside of this Pokemon is that if you make it angry, it will squeeze your brain with psychic power, giving you massive headaches. At least it's intelligent enough to understand and separate friend from foe, though. I actually had a lot more arguments or ideas for Golett and Golurk than I was expecting. Now, with Golett, it's a funny little guy that doesn't need food, likes to help, is known to be loyal, and doesn't take that much space as can always revert to its ball form in order to rest if it decides to. Not that it needs it, though with Golurk, it's far too large to keep inside of a building. As long as its seal isn't ripped off, it would be an amazing companion. Otherwise, it becomes an avatar of destruction, and that's the only real concern that you'll have with this Pokemon. Space, not even food, they don't eat, and it becoming an avatar of destruction. We got past the halfway point, and we have reached into Kalos, and we got that new Legends EA trailer. I am so excited for when that releases. I have really positive outlook when it comes to a lot of things if you haven't noticed by this point, and I'm really excited for all the lore and all the different analyses that I could start creating. So, I've said it a million times, be prepared for when that releases. I will be streaming on this channel, no-lifing that game, and exploring as much as I can, because oh my goodness, I'm excited for when that comes out. But for now, we move on to Chespin. Despite having a curious nature that tends to get it in trouble, Chespin keeps an optimistic outlook and does not worry about small details. By consuming tons of berries, the bark shell that covers Chespin's head and body will grow sturdier. So, another Pokemon that could actually naturally evolve without battle into, well, in this case, Quilladin, and a sturdy Pokemon at that. Quilladin is not aggressive and never starts fights, although it is known to exercise its lower body by running into other Quilladin. When it is forced to defend itself, it relies on its shell to deflect attacks, before counteracting with its sharp quills. The shell of a Quilladin is both sturdy and heavy, which naturally strengthens the lower body of Quilladin. Its tackle is powerful enough to send a trailer flying. Due to this body, it is immune to pain, not even violent collisions will phase it. So good news, your Chespin and Quilladin will never start a fight, meaning it'll be great for families and children. The problem though is, it will never feel pain, meaning either it can be injured and won't feel it, meaning we won't know if it receives a mortal blow, or, more realistically at least, it can feel pain and we tend to it appropriately, it's just incredibly sturdy. Hot air is vented from Fennekin's ears, reaching temperatures of over 390 degrees Fahrenheit, 200 degrees Celsius. It's like opening up an oven, but its ears. It uses this ability to intimidate opponents. Fennekin chews on twigs, which fill it with energy. It can be temperamental, but it tries to do its best for its trainer. In other words, it will attach to one person, and otherwise might be a little bit meaner to other individuals. Nothing we don't see in certain dogs. Despite Froakie's carefree attitude, it is vigilant of its surroundings. It uses a happy-go-lucky look as an act to trick its enemies, and it is both light and strong, making it capable of jumping incredibly high. Hyper-aware Pokemon capable of being positive and helping people improve their moods, I'd say that's a pretty nice win. Bunnelby is just a bunny that digs, but if it hears danger, which it is sensitive to, it will immediately dig a hole in the ground. Yeah, that sounds great. I love brand new holes in my living room. Fletchling is said to be very friendly and is very well known for its beautiful songs, which are in fact sounds of warnings. Just, oh, the birds sound beautiful today, honey. Oh, don't they? They sound fantastic. Help! Help me! Oh, that's just such beautiful sounds. It communicates by using chirps and moving its tail feathers to signal others of its kind. In spite of its typically peaceful disposition, it is relentless in battle and very territorial, attacking perceived threats mercilessly. Its body is warm and doubles in temperature when startled or excited. This increase in temperature spikes hormone production in its body, and it can burn someone if they touch their now super warm body with their bare hands. That, honestly, overall, sounds like a very nice Pokemon for more experienced pet owners, especially if you are experienced with birds. Unfortunately, as they evolve, they do become a little bit more aggressive, even against their own kind. The Flabebe line is kind. They are friendly and are apt to tend to flowers, considering that they are drawing their power from flowers. Then they share that life energy with guardians around them. So, if you have a garden, this line is great to have and self-sufficient. Florges will naturally occur as it evolves, and it goes the extra mile. So let's read up on it. Florges can live for several hundred years, with one being known to have lived for over 300. It devotes its life to protecting gardens. It claims beautiful flower gardens as its territory and can control the flower it grows, or the flowers it grows. It also gains power by basking in the energy emitted by flowering plants. A Florges' flower garden is said to contain healing properties for both body and spirit. In the past, it was asked to create flower guardians for castles. Because of this, Florges was popular with castle governors. While it can be compassionate, it will hunt down anyone who vandalizes the flower garden it takes care of, punishing them without mercy, even if said person begs for it. Sinnoh are livestock, and they're used to ride through mountains or produce milk, but they were also one of the first Pokemon to live alongside humans, so I wanted to at least give them an honorable mention, especially as they've grown on me over the years. Pancham tries to be intimidating, but in all reality, it's just a big softie that wants to try and imitate its parent Pangoro. It's gonna want to get into fights a lot, even on its own, kind of the whole reason for the delinquent behavior of the Pokemon line, which, again, it's another bear problem. Furfrou is a Pokemon that it feels very no-duh. It is a dog. In fact, it is modeled after a poodle/Afghanistan hound with the way that it is designed, and will make sure you know that you need to treat it with the utmost care. Furfrou used to guard the king in ancient times in Kalos and is known to be loyal to its trainer. It is said to be very intelligent. It will also only allow someone that it trusts to trim its hair. It's a Pokemon that will need plenty of maintenance as a pet, but returns that maintenance in loyalty. Esper's ears are quite large in proportion to its body and folded. Beneath its ears are two ring-shaped yellow organs. These organs emit Esper's intense psychic powers. It has no control over its power, and it would leak out if the ears were not sheltering the organs. It has enough psychic energy to create a blast radius of 300 feet or 90 meters, which also has the power to send a pro wrestler flying. While its blank expression barely changes, beneath it is an intense struggle, trying so hard to control its psychic powers. It can even fall unconscious if its power builds up too much. So, despite the small stature, it has a lot of power behind those ears. You could try to get this resolved through evolving it, but even if you don't, I'd like to give it a little bit more credit, as we see with Looker's Esper isn't under this constant strain and does seem a little bit happier or expressive in general. As Meowstic, they are far more controlled with their psychic power, the males being more or very protective, while it is said that the unfriendliness of the females are part of their charm. It's like Pokemon decide if they're a cat, they either have 0 brain cells and are adorable, or they're powerful, unfriendly, and aggressive. That is not something that I want in a Pokemon that has incredible psychic power, and all it has to do is take a bad day or just a stale attitude to point at me or point at a car and gone. Spritzee and Aromatisse seem calm and friendly enough, even being Pokemon that assisted in creating high-quality perfumes for royalty. I like them. I like their designs. They remind me of plague doctors, which, I mean, yeah, that's the whole point of them. The hard part is knowing that as someone who has asthma or anyone else who has a sensitivity to strong smells being affected by them, like it suffocates them, there are maybe problems with this line as a personal Pokemon. I have had a very poor sense of smell since birth, and many perfumes or colognes just smell like the base alcohol to me and becomes very overwhelming. So unfortunately, I personally have to give this Pokemon a hard pass, despite it being a great mon. So Swirlix is sticky, needs plenty of sugar, or it just gets angry if it doesn't eat enough. It is now going to be known as Diabetes Incarnate. Although, this Pokemon is actually another phenomenal Pokemon for anyone who may end up with diabetes or other conditions when it evolves. Slurpuff has an exceptionally keen sense of smell that is 100 million times stronger than that of a human. This allows it to distinguish even the faintest of smells and assist pastry chefs in cooking. Slurpuff can tell a person's mental and physical condition by taking in their scent. Its fur contains a lot of air, making it light and soft to the touch. So if you have a medical condition, or a chef, or on that wonderful Venn diagram you hit right there in the fat middle, or just generally want a Pokemon that you have to resist eating every single day of your life while knowing it can medically assist you, find a way to get a Slurpuff. Helioptile has no choice but to be an outside Pokemon. If it doesn't get enough sunlight, it will fall incredibly ill. Though, if you did live in warmer environments that don't have seasonal changes, you could give this Pokemon a dog door, Pokemon door, whatever you really want to call it, I guess. And then you can have a very happy Helioptile on your hands. Maybe get one of those little fancy lamps that simulate sunshine and UV light alongside a heating rock, and you are golden for any time it is too cold, rainy, or otherwise. Plus, if we assume the evolution stones are freely available to purchase, as we kind of have, evolve it then, you would then have a Pokemon that could assist with charging your entire home, since Heliolisk can power an entire skyscraper. Pretty strong benefit. Actually, I wonder what the cost-cutting effect would be if you did live in a seasonal area, helped Heliolisk charge outside, stored its electricity in generators, then powered your home with it, so that way you can use electricity to heat your home instead of using gas in the winter months, and provide that UV light so that way it doesn't get sick. On the opposite side of that electrical cost spectrum, we do have Dedenne, who is going to siphon electricity from your outlets, which will raise costs. It even says that if your bills rise suddenly, then check for Dedenne in your home, because it's likely the reason for it. And while it is cute, I'd rather not have incredibly high bills just because it doesn't know how to control itself. Klefki is adorable, and while it may steal keys, there are many stories where a Klefki becomes a nice little friend that can hold on to your valuable keys for you and be plenty happy as it guards them. The weird thing is that it will absorb the metallic ions from them, so your keys might break down. I guess it'll depend just on how much they eat to derive the cost from if it's worth it or not, assuming the Pokemon food is not on the table for them, which it's been on the table for every other Pokemon, so do that with what you will. Do I need to tell you how awkward and terrible and weird it is to have a Phantup as a pet? I'm putting this in the same space as Mr. Rhyme and Ralts, amongst the others. It just feels wrong. But at the same time, you may as well consider it adopting an orphan, considering the fates it had in life. It might have abandonment and separation anxiety, so just be prepared for that. Otherwise, they're just looking for a friend and some happiness. Noibat is just a happy little bat that will eat fruit and enjoys the dark, as it is a nocturnal creature. Just be careful with the supersonic blasts that it can emit, as those can destroy boulders. The plus side to all this is even if it somehow evolves into Noivern, they are just big softies, or can turn into big softies as long as you have their favorite fruit available, which can even turn the wild and aggressive Pokemon into super docile ones. The finish line is getting closer as we can start talking about the Pokemon originally found in Alola. While having a Rowlet as a pet in real life would be hyper illegal, since it would be considered part of a critically endangered species, or rather a dead species for that matter, I would commit war crimes for this little guy ever since I first laid eyes on him. Screenshots of the anime actually influenced me a lot, as I am a pretty strong guy, and even if I wasn't, carrying around a 3-pound, 1.5 kilogram Pokemon around all the time in a backpack should take zero effort. It is nocturnal, while also storing sunlight through the day for photosynthesis. You'll also want to ensure you have a small space for it, because Rowlet does feel more relaxed in tight, dark spaces, often nestling in trainer bags or the front of their jacket. Dartrix, as it evolves, is also alert, sensitive to its surroundings, but very narcissistic, spending a lot of time grooming its feathers to maintain its appearance. This compulsion will occasionally lead it to losing focus when its plumage is ruffled or dirty, even retiring from battle to preen. It has been described as a bit of a bird brain, as it has a tendency to make mistakes. When it does, it sometimes tries to cover it up, which ends up making the situation worse. A trainer who helps Dartrix through this difficult stage of life will allow it to reach its full strength. Dartrix will refuse to listen to a trainer who doesn't diligently help it groom. So yes, it becomes much needier in terms of care, whereas Rowlet just needs the right space, for the most part, and some attention. I'm not really sure if it would evolve once more without combat, but I've established a pattern, so I guess I can't stray from it now. For Decidueye, its behavior has changed once more, as it says, while this Pokemon is cool and cautious by nature, it begins to panic if surprised. It can hide from opponents by masking its presence, allowing it to attack unaware foes. and I will at least assume that the Hisuian form would need a full-on trainer instead of it just naturally evolving, so we can move on. Litten is a solitary Pokemon that does not typically display its emotions, and it is usually advised that it not be given too much affection. It will scratch those who try to pet it without earning its trust, which takes some time to develop. While grooming, Litten collects fur inside its stomach. By setting a stored fur alight, it can spit fireballs that change based on how it coughs. Litten's fur produces flammable oils, and when it begins shedding, it burns all its fur in a blaze. Its fur coat regrows twice a year. So a basic cat that has fire powers. Honestly, if you can train the Litten to take care of its fur problems outside in a controlled area, you should have nothing to worry about. Now, if Litten were, say, our cat Whiskey, that, decided that it'd be a really great idea to cough up a hairball right under the bed, which, if it was a Litten, would have lit the entire bed on fire and eventually the house, yeah, maybe not. It's not a great thing to wake up to. Paldea creates bubbles of water that it can use for acrobatic stunts and jumps, practicing with larger bubbles daily, though the sheer force of the bubbles can deal a lot of damage. Luckily, it does have complete control over those bubbles, and it is fairly friendly in terms of Pokemon, so the damage is real control. It's a seal, so make sure you have good water space for it, especially since it can swim at speeds of 25 miles per hour or 40 kilometers an hour. Do you really want a woodpecker as a pet? I can only imagine the number of holes in the house that I would have as I look at Pick-a-Peck, which is known to be able to peck through stone without feeling any pain at all. Even if we did manage to get it to become Toucanid, they communicate by striking with their beaks. The number of strikes and strength reflect how it is feeling. Like, no duh. Imagine repeatedly getting hit over and over again by this Toucanid with maximum power. And you're like, oh, I have to consult the charts and see, how is my Pokemon feeling? Oh, it might be angry. Like, duh. To at least give credit, though, to Toucanid, it is well known for forming loving couples, which makes it a common good luck charm at weddings. So, Toucanid are very loving. Grubbin typically lives underground, but I also have a buddy that cares for a bunch of bugs anyway, so I know if Grubbin were real, he would try to find a way to efficiently care for one. Though, if you do have it as a pet, it loves dirt that is somehow fluffier than regular dirt, so I guess you really aerate it. Charjabug is often found half buried in earth or leaves, munching on large quantities of humus. The sturdy shell covering Charjabug's body protects it from attacks, allowing it to eat peacefully. This diet helps Charjabug evolve into Vikavolt, so I was actually surprised to find out that it can naturally evolve without a trainer into a Pokemon that requires you to be in a magnetic, mountainous area. I really need to make a video detailing, like, the lore of every Pokemon that evolves in, like, not by level, because this is getting me more and more curious. In its body is an electric sac, which it uses to store electricity generated by digesting food. The electricity it stores could run a household for a full day and be shared with other Pokemon. People on camping trips are grateful to have Charjabug around. It'll zap you if you step on it, so just don't do that, and it uses sound waves to communicate with its kind. And it is the beep beep bug. What more could you ask for? I will say Vikavolt may be a problem, though. It will actively strike down bird Pokemon as revenge for all the torture it went through from bird Pokemon attacking it, though at least you can have an extra Charjabug pet since it likes to carry those as an extra battery. Now, Vikavolt is great at high-speed flights, being very adept at flight in general, despite being slow in the games. They're used in races in the anime, and sleep upside down to generate electricity, which I think is adorable. None of this really states behaviors, but as long as a flying Pokemon isn't near it, I would like to imagine it'll be calm and friendly, though I may also be a little bit biased since this is one of my favorite bug Pokemon lines. If your Talacrap Brawler will never leave you. It loves to have high perches, much like a cat, but if you try to remove it from those higher places, it will punch you hard. They can split tree bark open after all very easily. Otherwise, it just likes fruit, and is another easy Pokemon to care for if you're ready for land crabs. Okay, I can finally correct a mistake that I made a very long time ago. I called Oricorio hummingbirds. They are not. They are, in fact, honey creepers. Thank you, Pokemon Food Chain video, for having a number of different mistakes in it. I will remake you one day and give you all the Pokemon and animals that deserve due service, as I made a couple of mistakes, while also limiting myself to the Pokedex information only. Anywho, each of the forms do have a different look to them, and they all have distinct personalities, which is really weird considering the fact that you can change their form just by giving it enough nectar. Bile style Oricorio is very passionate and exudes power when it dances and can get fiercely angry if it is given the wrong orders. Just by saying Bile, the Hispanic in me, the Puerto Rican in me, wanted to keep saying words with a Spanish accent, which was weird. I had to fight my own tongue on that one. It throws off Downy Fluff when it dances that it can ignite to perform a fiery dance attack. Bylay style Oricorio is popular with the people of Paldea due to its dancing style matching their temperament nature. Pom-Pom style Oricorio's dancing charges its feathers with static electricity. While charged, those feathers can be used to attack and unleash electric shocks. It will also use this dancing to cheer up people who are feeling glum, but will also use this as an opening to shock unsuspecting foes. In Paldea, Pom-Pom style is popular with children due to its energetic, cheerful dance, however it is hard to find in said region. Pau style Oricorio can be difficult to deal with due to its laid-back nature. It uses its dance to focus its mind and increase its psychic power. The dance is also said to be an offering of thanks to its guardian deity. It gets so caught up in dancing that it sometimes ignores its trainer's orders, and in Paldea, it is popular due to it being used to maintain health. And then finally, through its dance, Senzu style Oricorio draws in nearby spirits and borrows their power to fight. Its dance reminds people who migrated from Kanto of their homeland. In Paldea, it is popular with adults due to its elegant, attractive dance. It is hard to find in said region and is more commonly seen in Kitakami. Cutiefly is no different than caring for a bee in the end, though I didn't discuss it earlier. You probably don't want comb bee because if you mistreat them at all, Vespiquen will have your head. But if you do respect them, then you get free honey. Like, that's literally just how it works with them. Cutiefly, back to them, is capable of detecting the aura of living things, such as plants, people, and Pokemon. It uses this ability to predict the movements of its opponents. Cutiefly's diet consists of pollen and nectar, drinking it through its long proboscis. Any pollen it does not finish is stored in its fur. It collects nectar and pollen from flowers, which are found by the color and brightness of their auras. However, when a living creature is excited, its aura resembles a flower in full bloom. As a result, Cutiefly tends to gather around beings feeling strong emotions. When Cutiefly draws close, it will painfully poke them with its long proboscis. In other words, I would get poked a lot. Because I am a very collected individual emotionally, despite that I do have very strong emotions and get very excited about things. I like to show my emotion rather than just be flat all the time. So, no thanks, unless I can keep it alive long enough for it to evolve and become Ribbonbee, because it is adorable and another great Pokemon for mental health. There's a lot of Pokemon that are good for mental health. I know I keep repeating it, but, you know, it's an analysis after all. The pollen and nectar it collects are used to form balls called pollen puffs. These balls can be used as food or relieve tiredness with a soothing effect. The Alolan people sell pollen puffs as valuable nutritious supplements. When a Ribbonbee senses a human or Pokemon feeling sad, it will cheer them up using handmade pollen puffs. Now for the Pokemon I almost put on the thumbnail, ready to model it after the TCG art of Rockruff sleeping. It has an excellent sense of smell and will never forget an odor after smelling it once. There are tales of it reuniting with its trainer after becoming lost by following the faintest traces of scent. It has lived with humans since ancient times. Rockruff is often recommended as a good Pokemon for beginner trainers due to its friendly nature and ability to bond with trainers easily. However, it is said to be a challenging Pokemon to raise to the point where some trainers abandon it due to being unable to handle it. That makes me sad. This Pokemon is very sociable and will greet others by rubbing them with the rocks around its neck. As it ages, it becomes wilder and more independent. Once it is close to evolving, it will begin to howl when the sun goes down. It has been said to leave its trainer's side and return once it has evolved. Despite becoming more vicious as it matures over time, Rockruff never forgets its master's kindness. Wild Rockruff travels in packs until they do evolve. A persistent Pokemon, it will keep on going until it outlasts foes that are even more powerful than it. Also, it does not get along with Growlithe naturally, so maybe don't have them both as pets without extensive training. But otherwise, Rockruff is amazing. Imagine giving your child a Rockruff, and as the child grows up, they become more independent. And so does the Rockruff. They both leave home, and oh my gosh, this is just one big metaphor for raising a child and watching them leave and go to college and then, or doing whatever they want to do with their life, exploring the world and then coming back. But wow. But hey, you know, you get to suffer twice the heartbreak, but then you get twice the relief when your babies come home after growing up. And you get an evolved Pokemon without having to have it go through Pokemon battles. The important question, though, is which one will you get? Which is, again, very similar to the whole idea of, oh, you maybe, if you do have a kid, they come back, and what will their personality be since they've been gone? The midday form has a calm, collected, and cautious personality. In order to avoid needless fighting, the midday form prefers to live alone and does not form a pack with others of its kind. However, it is a fiercely loyal partner to trainers that accept it during its unruly stage. In contrast to its midday form, Lycanroc's midnight form is thrilled by battling and becomes more excited the stronger the opponent. This excitement is what causes its eyes to glow. Midnight form is known to be reckless, along with extremely vicious temper. Trainers can draw its power through earning its trust, but it despises those that it disagrees with or those who try to force it to fight. And finally, the Dusk form, Lycanroc, shares traits from the previous two forms: its stance, calm demeanor, and loyal nature, shared with the Midday form. However, it also shares the Midnight form's fighting spirit, including the red, glowing eyes at the moment of attack. Dusk form Lycanroc never barks, unlike its two other forms. Due to only evolving at sunset, it is also considered the rarest of the three. The Dusk form of Lycanroc is rather difficult to train due to its temperamental nature. Because of this, it is considered the most troublesome of its three forms. So, that basically means you have a higher chance of getting back a more temperamental Pokemon that will need a lot more attention and care. Exercise, give it a job. Heck, these Pokemon would be great if they were trained properly and sent out as maybe even legit SWAT dogs. And we've seen SWAT Pokemon before as they use Arcanine, so it isn't out of the question. Just be prepared for these changes. I'm skipping through a number of them as they would be rather repetitive due to being topics we have already discussed already, such as our horses and bugs and plants and the mixture of those two, and then lead into one that I know many have considered, being Stuffle. Despite its small size, Stuffle has extraordinary strength and can knock out even well-trained Pokemon if they are unprepared. The combination of its cute appearance, mannerisms, and fluffy fur make it very popular. However, Stuffle actually dislikes being touched and will flail its powerful arms if it is embraced. Stuffle's flailing is powerful enough to break thick tree trunks. As mentioned in its Sleep Style Dex, Stuffle is filled with power despite sleeping and is often seen flailing about and moving constantly while sleeping. As in the Poke Problem segment of Living on the Cutting Edge, Stuffle is powerful enough to break through walls of steel. So, no cuddling if you want to stay alive and keep your bones intact. Also, maybe find a way to give it an enclosure that is stronger than steel somehow, as if that's ever going to happen, without having extreme funds. This is why we can't have bear Pokemon as pets. They're all super powerful, or aggressive, or both. Now, there was an argument for the Bunsweet line, and outside of the weirdness that the Pokedex has of saying how, oh, we can distill its sweat to make juice, it also does have a calming scent that allows them to be used as living air fresheners. They're really cute on all in all, though keep a good eye on them, because with the way that they bounce every time they run, it's hard to tell if they're actually happy or if they're scared and in danger if you're further away. With Steenie, while it has a delectable fragrance, this Pokemon also has a tomboyish personality that can make it hard to get along with. I still don't understand that. I don't know. My girlfriend has a more tomboyish personality, so I don't know. It is what it is. Steenie's scent is a popular antiperspirant used by humans and helps others feel invigorated. Steenie's peeled rind can be used for stomach pains. Its calyx has hardened, allowing it to play with other Pokemon without worrying about being damaged. However, the leaves spin as Steenie moves and often strike nearby objects. It apparently does not care what it hits, and even uses the calyx as a form of attack. Just please do not teach it Stomp, even by accident. Serena is known to be both powerful and aggressive. This Pokemon has a high-class nature and punishes anyone who approaches it with evil in mind, so I mean, at least then it'll take care of itself. This attitude will even be directed at its trainer if given commands Serena dislikes, such as being told to use an ineffective move. Touching the crown-like growth on its head is said to render it defenseless, however, and will instantly calm it down. I don't need to say anything regarding this Pokemon. I just know what people think and where they'll go with it. Moving on. Comfey spreads oil from their body along these flower rings, changing the flowers so that they emit a soothing fragrance that affects both Comfey and its allies. This aroma can also help with the treatment of people and Pokemon at hospitals and Pokemon centers. Each Comfey wears different flowers, which give off its own unique scent and never wither. As mentioned in Pokemon Sleep, it is known to sleep with a smile and a flower close to its face. That flower is said to have a scent that helps it sleep comfortably. Great for guardians, great for people who have anxiety, I wouldn't mind one myself to help me sleep at night. Komala was spoken for as well. This Pokemon stays asleep from birth to death, staying this way because of its diet of certain leaves containing poison only Komala can break down, which induces sedative properties. While its expression sometimes changes as if it is aware of its surroundings, this appears to be a result of its dreams instead. It is able to eat, travel, and even battle without waking. If the log pillow it clings to is removed, it will be unable to sleep well and thrash wildly. However, it will sometimes cling to the arm of a trainer it trusts. During a deep sleep, it stops moving altogether. According to ancient people, if a small amount of the saliva created when it eats leaves is watered down and ingested, one will be able to sleep well. This diluted saliva was also historically used as an anesthetic for surgeries. The argument that was made for Komala also posited that it must have some sort of dream version of the trainer that is being seen, or that it is somehow otherwise using its senses that is aware of its surroundings still while being in a semi-slumber, because it never actually opens its eyes, yet is aware of those surroundings and can form opinions of distinct trainers, which is adorable. And while I originally was going to place Komala as a mid-pet, this actually bumps it up a little bit. Just keep its log safely with it. The trick to Mimikyu is to never damage its disguise and never like a Pikachu. A lonely Pokemon, Mimikyu is always covered by its disguise. It is unknown what Mimikyu's true appearance looks like. However, glimpses of it are seen, such as its claw, its underside, and its eyes. Since this Pokemon is weakened by sunlight, it is rumored that the veil is used for protection. It is believed that seeing its true form will cause a mysterious illness or even a painful death. Because of this, Mimikyu would become agitated and violently stop anyone from attempting to look underneath its rag. So, at least it'll keep you safe from the cosmic horrors and be incredibly happy to have a friend in you. Again though, just make sure its disguise is never broken or it will try to exact revenge on anyone that did so on purpose, crying throughout the entire time as it stares in the mirror, repairing its disguise, and we don't want any of that. We're in Galar. If you like music, more specifically, if you're a percussionist and love plants, you cannot deny wanting a Grookey. If you tell me you don't want one, you're absolutely incorrect. Your opinion is wrong and it doesn't matter anymore. Grookey has two leaf-shaped hair tufts that hold a stick on the top of its head. The stick used to be a branch from a forest where troops of Grookey lived, and it has a special power due to being exposed to the energy within Grookey's body. This energy helps Grookey's stick grow harder and more flexible. Besides using it when attacking, Grookey beats this stick rhythmically against the surfaces of all sorts of objects. This has been observed to cause grass to grow, and wilted flowers and leaves to seemingly regain their color, as depicted in the Pokemon The Journey series episode Beyond Chivalry. Aiming to be a leak master, it can even restore weakened plant-like Pokemon such as Bellsprout, so it can actually heal other plant Pokemon if you had them. Grookey's green fur can create energy from the sunlight, similar to how plants use their green leaves to photosynthesize. Grookey is said to be full of boundless curiosity. It enjoys being in high places and rhythmic things such as music or dancing. As it does evolve, it becomes more animalistic, being entranced as a thwacky with the beating of its sticks, always finding the beat even while it walks, and grooming each other to cheer them up. Meanwhile, Rillaboom always carries its signature drum with it on its back and pulls it out when engaged in battle. This bass drum is crafted from a tree stump, with several thick branches, or branch stumps, protruding from it, which form both the legs of the bass drum as well as mid and high toms. Rillaboom also carries two drumsticks in its cuffs and takes them out to beat its drum. By drumming, Rillaboom can tap into the power of its special tree stump. The roots of the stump follow the direction of its drumming in battle. In a troop of Rillaboom, the one with the best drumming technique is the leader. This is how Rillaboom who challenged each other for leadership usually settles it through a drum battle. It has a kind and calm disposition, valuing harmony within its group. It is very sensitive towards discord that could threaten the group's harmony, so it keeps a strict watch for such actions. Any offenders who drum up discord will be strictly disciplined by Rillaboom until they have learned their lesson. Due to its strong sense of unity, it will ferociously defend its allies from trouble. So, toss-up really. I gotta admit, I have dealt with root problems and I don't want to deal with any, and I don't imagine this could cause much, but it's just still a possibility when it comes to root problems under the house or plumbing or whatever. Also, having such a massive Pokemon as a house pet wouldn't really work, but Grookey sounds adorable and I'm all in. Scorbunny loves to run and is filled with energy. A warm-up run can cause the fire energy in Scorbunny to start coursing through its body, allowing it to fight at full power. It has a sac in its chest that contains fire energy, which it uses to generate heat from the special pads on the soles of its feet and its nose, once it is ready to fight. The pads on Scorbunny's feet can get so hot that it is capable of using them to start small fires and burn opponents with a kick. It is a rare Pokemon, generally found under the ownership of trainers, and according to Pokemon Journeys, the soles on Scorbunny's feet are believed to bring good luck. Very active Pokemon, which of course you would expect of our football rabbit, which could allow it to evolve without actually battling. Raboot takes great pride in its kicking moves, usually practices its footwork by kicking berries from a tree's branches and then juggling them with its feet. While training its kicking attacks, it tries to avoid using its arms, tucking them under its fur. This effectively prevents Raboot from losing any body heat. And then, due to its strong core and great balance, Cinderace can unleash powerful kicks from any position. In battle, it uses artful footwork to feint and throw its opponents off. This move allows Cinderace to blind opponents and keeps them at bay. It can get pumped up with excitement should it get cheered on, however, it may get itself in trouble if it starts showboating. Despite easily losing its cool, it will follow the orders of its trainer without flaw. While I don't play any of the sport balls, this is a phenomenal Pokemon for anyone that might have any interest in doing so and wants a active lifestyle, very much like our fighting type Pokemon. Sobble can run around as both a quadruped and a biped and use its forelimbs as arms. It has the ability to change the patterns and colors on its body when touching water, allowing it to camouflage itself. Sobble is known to be very cautious in nature. Due to it being a bit timid, when Sobble gets nervous or embarrassed, it secretes water from its body like sweat in order to disappear into its surroundings. If it feels threatened, it will start bawling and spreading its tears around the area, which are said to be as potent as 100 onions and can cause anyone near it to start crying uncontrollably, which it will use as a distraction in order to escape. This Pokemon suckered me into picking it as my first water-type starter rather than my usual grass-type starter whenever I play a game for the first time. I look back and I don't really regret it, but I have grown to like Grookey a little bit more, whereas they were originally tied with each other upon my first impressions. I don't know, for some reason I have a proclivity of taking in introverts as the resident extrovert here. If you can keep Sobble happy, safe, and not anxiety-filled, you won't have to worry about those tears, but considering it is real timid, I wish you the best of luck. 1 onion already burns, imagine 100. Rookidee are feisty and territorial Pokemon and will bravely fight against anybody no matter how big and strong that opponent is. They are able to store some of their own energy after every battle, so they can grow a bit stronger even if they lose. Using their legs, they're able to jump nimbly from place to place to confuse Pokemon bigger than themselves. Female Rookidee are fussier than males and will relentlessly attack anyone who dirties its wings. These are just another red-winged blackbird Pokemon, so go get it if you really want to. Personally, I know I would risk it, though it would hurt me a lot. I just can't resist the idea of having a Corviknight, and I could only hope that it would be self-sufficient enough to eventually evolve into said Corviknight. The next duo, being plants, do be doing plant things, and are phenomenal for people who love plants, as per usual. Gossifleur prefers living in lands with clean water and air. The pollen it produces has a healing effect, and it used to be made into a tea as a common folk remedy given to sick children in the Galar region. Gossifleur can travel long distances by riding the wind, controlling which direction it goes by twisting its body and petals. While it travels, it starts to sing a joyous song that is said to charm many people into raising it. Hold on there. That's psychic control. I wasn't ready for that. It can anchor itself to the ground to bask in the sunlight, and when it absorbs enough sunlight, it blooms brilliantly. Eldegoss's cotton fluff acts like a cushion to protect its head from attacks. The cotton can also be spun into a glossy, gorgeous yarn that is a specialty in Galar. When Eldegoss's cotton is weaved together with Cottony's cotton, it makes a cloth that is popular with many luxury brands. It is said that the seeds inside Eldegoss's cotton fluff is highly nutritious and beneficial for people and Pokemon. It spreads the seeds by wind, enriching the soil with nutrients wherever these seeds land. Also, just so you know in real life, cottonseed plants, their seeds are toxic. They have their own toxin that has been named just because it's the only one that actually produces it. There has been some work to try and see if that can be turned into an edible substance, but that was years ago, and I don't know any of the updates as of right now. Now, I said Flaffy wasn't a house pet, and I will say Wooloo isn't a house pet, but they're super friendly, fluffy, cute, and everything we could want and love in a sheep, except ramped up to 10 on the adorable meter. Now, I did mention it briefly previously, and well, way earlier in the intro of this video, basically, but Chewtle is a Pokemon that is actually fairly safe. All in all, it is a snapping turtle. Keep your fingers away from its mouth, and even children find it so safe that they like to play games where they have a Chewtle bite one end, another Chewtle bites the other end of a stick, and they try to see which one holds on longer, okay? Now, a lot of trainers will take in Chewtle thinking, oh, I can take care of this Pokemon, but it is known to be difficult to raise. So when it eventually evolves into Dreadnought, having not been raised properly, trainers will illegally release it into the wild, and this is a faster, aggressive, now abandoned Pokemon sitting in the wild. Not great. So if you want this snapping turtle as a pet, you have to take really good care of it and know that it is a difficult Pokemon to raise. Yamper tends to be drawn to fast-moving things and will chase after people, other Pokemon, or even vehicles. That's not safe. Yamper has an organ that generates electricity from the base of its tail when it runs. It cannot store the electricity it generates, so sparks of electricity can often be seen when it is running. In the Galar region, it is a popular choice for herding Pokemon such as Wooloo. Due to its gluttonous nature, it will only assist people in exchange for treats, very food motivated. Joltik are often seen on its hindquarters, feeding on its static electricity. It's an electric corgi. It's what you'd expect out of a little yapper. And when it evolves into Boltund, that behavior is not changing outside of maybe being a little bit more controlled, but also running faster without tire. So Applin is a very interesting one. It isn't aggressive, and the apple it lives in never rots, or rather the Lepa berry it lives in never rots, I do suppose. In Galar, it is accustomed to give an Applin as a romantic gesture to somebody. The flavor of the apple Applin lives in determines its evolution. The apples can be exceptionally tart, sweet, or syrupy. So let's go over all the evolutions and see if we can try and find a temperament. Flapple doesn't say it, but it also does spray an acidic liquid to defend itself. And by the way, that same acid is actually what it uses to preserve the Lepa berry apple, whatever you want to call it, as you either need one of two things. Either chemicals, such as formalin, or acidic substances to preserve things. It's why citrus fruits hold better for longer periods of time, is because they're naturally antibacterial through their acidity. Now, when we look at Appletund's body, it is caked in sweet nectar, whose smell attracts bug-type Pokemon, which Appletund preys on. However, its primary diet is sweet apples. In order to ward off other Pokemon, such as Lechonk, from licking the nectar on its back, it can spew a sticky nectar at them. The skin on its back is said to be tasty, and children used to eat it as a snack. I have to admit, I love pie. Pie is my favorite thing. There is not a single day any singular worst day can happen in my life, and pie will immediately cheer me up. I used to make the joke that the first person to make me a pie from scratch is the person that I would marry, and I will at least admit my girlfriend has done that 3 times now, so I'm very much locked in at this point. Either way, I'm sure you can tell where Appletun sits in my mind in terms of how great of a Pokemon it is, especially if I can get free Appletun skin without harming it. And while Diplin states no behavior or diet, we do have info for Hydrapple. The 7 Serpents that form Hydrapple have inconsistent and fickle temperaments. Yes, Serpents, not serpents. And rarely work together as a team. On the rare occasion that the Serpents' mood align, Hydrapple unleashes its full power. So you might have some quarreling, which may end up with some laser beams being shot back and forth, which don't really harm them, but, you know, it's pretty destructive to a home, so I'm not sure how I feel about that. Time for the diaper baby that is Toxel. Toxel has 2 sacs inside of its body, 1 to store poison and 1 to store electricity. It is able to drink dirty water and filter it into a poison that is harmless to it. By manipulating the chemical makeup of this poison, it can produce electricity from it. Toxel relays the electric poison through its skin. While the voltage produced by this electrified poison is weak, it can cause paralysis if touched. It has a selfish nature and loves seeking attention. So, just toss the child into dirty water. Got it. Honestly, when I first saw it, and you get it from the Pokemon daycare, I looked at it dead in the eyes and said, "You are my Magikarp," and then struggled to come up with a name for it because I just kind of liked the name a little too much, especially when it becomes Toxtricity, which I imagine you could evolve it into Toxtricity without battle. And then you have another great Pokemon that serves as a guitar or a bass, depending on which form it ends up turning into, high or low key. Just make your rock band a Pokemon. You know you want to. You can take your risks of life and death with Sinistea and the Sinistcha lines if you really want to. We've already discussed how I'm not allowed to have a Reuniclus, and I am a food-motivated individual, so I would get a little too curious for my own good, and yeah, that won't turn out well for me. Another Pokemon I'm not allowed to have or even be around if it exists somehow within even the same region as me is the Hoenn, because as it evolves, it becomes so sensitive to emotion, let alone strong emotions, not good or bad emotions, not anger, happiness, fear, whatever, just emotions in general, that Hattrem will run at you if it senses your emotion and just deck you, and then Hatterene will tear you apart with its claws. You're not allowed to have strong emotions around them whatsoever, which is absolutely ridiculous. So, despite them being pretty Pokemon with their gradient coloring, they are not great Pokemon for me to be around whatsoever. Impidimp is a mischievous Pokemon that loves to sneak into people's houses, steal things, and generally be a nuisance to their opponents. This allows it to feed on negative emotions that it causes, sucking them through its nose. In contrast, Impidimp will become irritable if it has no negative emotions to feed on. They live in groups, practicing their troublemaking skills on each other. Great Pokemon that becomes one of the sickest designs in Pokemon through Grimmsnarl and its Gigantamax, which is just a super muscled, ultra Gurren Lagann mech, but because of the pure amount of negativity and what it does, I have to pass. We have another Pokemon that is on our hands and can absolutely evolve without battling and can be a phenomenal house pet for anyone who likes baking, pastry chefs, whatever you want to say. Milcery. Milcery is born from sweet-smelling, it's Milcery, whatever, sweet-smelling particles in the air. When a Milcery absorbs sweet aromas, its body begins to swell. It will start to deflate when its energy level begins to drop. When it is attacked, it'll tackle the foe first before covering them in cream. Once the opponent is either blinded or astonished by delicious cream, Milcery will then flee. It is rumored that patisseries, never read that word before, visited by Milcery are guaranteed success and good fortune. Now, if you give it the right sweets and confectionaries and then spin it around, which it itself is actively aware of in terms of what it needs to evolve, it will evolve into alchemy. And when you get its trust, it will treat you with berries and cream, or berries with cream. The content of alchemy's cream can become richer and sweeter the happier it feels. Due to the cream it makes being very delicious, many pastry chefs seek to have alchemy as a partner. The cream is said to have an exquisite taste as a result. Alchemy's cream is said to bring happiness to anyone who eats them. If attacked, it will throw a sweet, scented cream to distract or blind the opponent in order to escape, and the cream's effect is powerful enough to make an opponent soothe and lose their will in battle if eaten. And it comes in assorted flavors, such as vanilla, ruby, matcha, mint, lemon, salted, ruby 2, caramel, and rainbow. So lots to choose from. As much as I would love 6 armored Kirby's in a battalion, Phalanx does like to battle a lot. It is a fighting type, so we'll just place it with the same ruling as all the others for their active lifestyle and general benevolence. Although, Phalanx could use a good person to teach it how to be a proper leader, moreover speaking about the brass of the Phalanx. Otherwise, it may put all the troopers at consistent risk and make them very unhappy. Snom do be eating snow, it has to live outside, it gets very cold, getting larger spikes the more it eats until it eventually evolves, and keeping a Frostmoth would not be great indoors as its wings can reach negative 290 degrees Fahrenheit or negative 180 degrees Celsius, while also being a Pokemon that prefers to live in mountains. Morpeko carries around berry seeds that have been electrically roasted in its pockets. It treats the seeds with care as if they were precious treasures until it eats them as a snack. The seeds it stores keep Morpeko's hunger at bay due to its small stomach. Unless Morpeko continues to eat its stored seeds, it will become instantly hungry. It generates electricity with its cheek sacs. This process consumes a lot of energy and causes it to become hungry no matter how much it eats. By expressing prolonged hunger, the hormones in Morpeko shift in balance and its fur color changes. As a result of its intense hunger, it becomes aggressive, driven into committing all kinds of evil deeds and enacting violence, extreme violence, until their hunger is satisfied. The energy within its cheeks also changes from electric to dark typing. Hangry mode Morpeko has a wild, brute-like nature while in this form. However, as seen in the Pokemon The Journeys episode, crowning the Chow Crusher, once Morpeko is fully fed, it will refuse to eat more food and attack anyone who tries to feed it. So yeah, that's a little bit problematic, but I think we could just agree that Morpeko should just be named Snickers, because you aren't you when you're hungry. One day I'll get sponsors, it's okay if I don't, I'm actually not entitled to them, it's just fun to make that joke. There were a number of comments about Indeedee, actually, our little butler Pokemon, This Pokemon willingly serves people and other Pokemon as they derive their energy from feelings of gratitude. They sense emotions by touching their horns to determine others' needs and serve them better. Males are skilled at being valets, while the females are supposed to be excellent babysitters. Indeedee is always bustling around, searching and serving those with happy feelings. The Indeedee never leaves its trainer's side. It uses its psychic power to predict its trainer's actions and take care of everyday needs. It dislikes conflict and will throw things at anyone who disturbs its territory using psychic powers. Call them Alfred, build your Crow Batman cave, and live your fantasy life. Now, personally, I do want the Dreepy line so bad, but the problem with them is that we don't know their personalities all that much, other than them being creatures that avoid conflict, will disappear, and love high speeds. They don't really need to eat those, so I mean, give them attention, watch it naturally evolve into Dragapult one day, and then your house will be filled with these cute creatures flying through the halls at Mach speeds at 3 a.m. We have finally reached the final frontier in Paldea, and of course everyone wants the funny cat that is Sprigatito. Sprigatito is capricious and attention-seeking, and it tends to sulk if ignored by people. Sprigatito can rub its paws together to unleash a sweet, therapeutic aroma that mesmerizes anyone near it and causes its foes to stop battling. The scent becomes more potent when Sprigatito is exposed to sunlight. It can absorb moisture into its fur by grooming it, which helps it perform photosynthesis. It washes its face regularly to avoid drying out. As mentioned in its sleep-style decks, Sprigatito can spread this scent around by moving around as it sleeps. It is believed it does this to help itself and other Pokemon relax more easily. A great cat to help us sleep, and once again, because plant, it will evolve naturally, and as it evolves, it definitely would be a Pokemon that is best fit for somebody who will not only give it plenty of attention, but also praise it for its skills. In all honesty, being a loud and somewhat show-offy person myself, sometimes this Pokemon is a little bit tempting for me. When it does reach Florigato, it is intelligent and dexterous. It is also mischievous and likes showing off, desiring attention and companionship from others. If its trainer refuses to give it attention, Florigato may misbehave by pulling pranks, such as tying the trainer with its vine while they are asleep. And with Masquerada, it is a talented magician. It carries a 4-petaled green flower, whose stem is hidden by the reflective fur on its cape, creating the illusion of floating. It has a proud, showy personality, however, it also is sensitive and prone to jealousy. It can often be very attached to its trainer, and will become upset if its trainer gives attention to other Pokemon. So, I mean, a little bit problematic considering the fact that I do want to give attention to all of my other Pokemon, but when you are a magician, when you are so showy, of course, and because of it also being a cat, when it wants attention, it's gonna want attention real bad. So pay attention to its magic tricks or whatever. Make it happy. Now that I think about it, all 3 of the starters within this generation might actually be able to evolve without fighting. They all specialize in skills that they enjoy training on their own, so we're gonna say that they all actually evolve to their final forms without a combat trainer. Fuecoco is laid back and does things at its own pace. It enjoys eating and will rush towards any food it sees. As shown in Pokemon Sleep, it and its evolutions are known to sometimes sleep with one eye open. While asleep, it sometimes moves its mouth as if it is chewing. Fuecoco has yellow square scales on its stomach, back, tail, and the soles of its feet. These scales are warm to the touch, although they can become heated. These scales absorb external heat, such as from warm rocks where it lies on, to be turned into fire energy. Atop Crocolore's head is an orange mass of fire energy shaped like a nest, with yellow squares patterning it. This nest contains a yellow, glowing, egg-shaped fireball on top, born out of Crocolore's fire energy and overflowing vitality. Crocolore can control the fireball, sending it out and using it for his moves. The fireball on Crocolore's head never falls off even as the Pokemon sways rhythmically in its sleep. Its internal flame sac has a valve that connects to its vocal cords, and as a result, it lets out guttural cries as it releases fire from its mouth. Its voice can hardly be described as beautiful, however, but its voice becomes more destructive as it breathes more powerful fire. And finally, with Skeledirge, there is a bright orange fiery bird nesting on top of its head, which is a separate, independent entity from the Pokemon. It is said that the bird was born when the egg-shaped fireball Skeledirge had as a Crocolore gained a soul, which, my goodness gracious, that brings some more implications and questions that I have for this Pokemon, which did, though, give Skeledirge its ghost typing. The bird can sometimes be seen pecking at Skeledirge's jaws, supposedly cleaning its teeth. The fiery bird will also play pranks on Skeledirge when it is asleep in its shallow sleep, which is actually a behavior that Skeledirge actually tolerates. Skeledirge has a meddlesome but caring personality. Its singing is gentle but powerful and full of vitality, capable of soothing the souls of all those who hear it. Opponents hearing its song will feel warm and fulfilled inside, losing their will to battle. A singing crocodile? I'm calling it Louie, even though Louie was an alligator. But hey, this is a Pokemon that is great with children, likes to sing, and those are both solid wins if you have a family. Quaxly is an earnest and tidy Pokemon and tends to overthink things. Its feathers secrete a glossy gel which protects its body against water and grime. It hates getting itself dirty, especially on its head. Quaxly's strong legs allow it to swim without issues even in strong currents. As this Pokemon does evolve, it will need more attention and care, especially regarding the coif on its head and the upkeep of itself. Honestly, the more that we read about this Pokemon, the more I tend to relate to it, as I end up working a little too hard sometimes and don't quite take care of my hair. I mean, I do know my limits and avoid crashes and burnout, so don't worry about that at least. Quaxwell has a serious, stoic personality, though is known to be temperamental. It learns and practices dance routines by observing the movements of people and Pokemon from various regions. It is a hard worker, constantly trains its strength and its technique. Flocks of them train by running their legs through shallow waters and then compete with each other for the most graceful of kicks. As mentioned in the Sleep Dex, Quaxwell maintains its beautiful posture even while asleep. However, the daily training it maintains can occasionally leave it too tired to care for its coif. As a result, it is left messy as it does sleep. Finally, Quaxwell's legs are well trained and have incredible strength, being able to launch a truck with a single kick. It uses its legs to perform dance moves, some of which appear to be based on dances from faraway lands. It is viewed by Serena as its rival. Its dances can mesmerize all those who see it. Even while Quaxwell is asleep, it has also been seen swaying its whole body at every opportunity. On occasion, a sleeping Quaxwell has been seen striking elegant poses. Strike a pose, strike a pose, strike a pose, just all while asleep. It has a cheerful and energetic disposition, dancing away no matter what the situation it faces. However, it is also stoic and very serious, especially when it comes to consistently polishing its skills. It can become very focused during critical situations. It's a dance routine Pokemon in the end. It is incredibly self-disciplined. It would be great for anyone who loves dancing, though I have a feeling it might be a little too critical at times, so it'd be interesting to see how it works as a teaching Pokemon, rather than it being like a student or just a Pokemon that is brought up under a trainer. Lechonk! It's a pig. If you want a pet pig that can eventually give you spritzes of perfume that has a calming effect, there you go. But to give it its due, Lechonk has a timid and faint-hearted temperament and will panic and charge forward if attacked or startled by an opponent. Despite its apparent bulk, its body mainly consists not of fat but of muscle, built up by its habit of walking around to find food. Some trainers use it to look for cooking ingredients, such as detached abominable pincers scattered on mountains. As seen in the anime, Lechonk will become hostile towards trainers carrying groceries or meals and attack them for your food. I don't want to go to the grocery store and on my way back I have to worry about a grouping of pigs attacking me just because I had something super sweet or that just had a really strong smell. Palmy's line, they're just living defibrillators. Palmy itself has yellow underdeveloped electric sacs in its cheeks, as well as yellow pad-like organs on its forepaws that can discharge electricity. If it feels threatened, it will rub its cheeks to generate electricity, which it then delivers to its opponents by touching them with its forepaws. The organs on its forepaws turn teal blue when discharging. Its thick fur provides insulation against the cold and allows it to store electricity. As mentioned in Pokemon Sleep, Palmy will occasionally discharge electricity while sleeping by rubbing its cheeks with its palms. It is theorized that it does this to practice generating said electricity. It consistently keeps a happier, calm personality as it evolves into Palmont, which states that it has a peaceful personality. And on occasion, Palmont will heal injured Pokemon by discharging electricity from its forepaws. If it raises its paws while it sleeps, it is possibly dreaming of tending to other Pokemon. So, for all of you medical students out there you go. Tandemaus is great if you want an infestation every single time that you look away and it has more children. Apparently, nobody knows where the smaller individuals come from when it comes to Tandemaus, according to the Pokemon lore all in all. All they know is that the larger and smaller individuals live together and act as a family. However, their actual relationship is unclear. The larger individuals protect the smaller ones in battle, although they will work together when faced with stronger opponents. Mousehold create and live in huge nests comprising many rooms with different purposes such as eating and sleeping. It's almost like they turned this house into a home, this mouse into a mome. More Pokemon great for bakers or pastry chefs, whatever. Also, they're dogs. Fido's smooth, moist skin is firm yet soft to the touch and has elastic qualities. It's kind of like bread before it goes in the oven. You know, if you get it from a can. Pillsbury. I don't know why I said Pillsbury specifically, but, you know, there you go. Fido will puff itself up to appear larger in an attempt to intimidate its opponents. Fido's breath contains yeast and is used to ferment things. Ooh, kimchi. You ferment kimchi, don't you? Although I don't think you could do that with yeast. It'd be a pretty bad idea. Fido has long been considered a companion for humanity because its yeast is useful for cooking. Now, when it evolves into Darksponge, its body emanates a pleasant, appetizing aroma, which helps wheat grow. Thus, Darksponge is historically treasured by farming villages. Once exposed to intense heat, its skin will harden. Once again, I'm not really sure if I'm allowed to have them as a pet, considering the fact that it literally says appetizing aroma. I'm already looking at this Darksponge's ears and being like, I wonder how tasty that would be. It's just let me get a nibble, you know? How tasty would it be? Would it hurt you? If not, could I have some? So yeah, it's another Pokemon I'm not allowed to have because I'm a very food-motivated person. Oops. I love the little anxiety olive known as Smoliv. Inside its fruit, it stores oil made from nutrients it gathers through photosynthesis, which allows it to go for a week without eating or drinking. Its oil is bitter and astringent enough to make someone flinch, and thus is not suitable for consumption. Really messed up my word there. Its evolution Dolive has existed with people since ancient times, living among them in settlements and sharing its tasteful, fresh-scented oil. It enjoys basking in the sunlight until the fruits on its head ripen. Once accomplished, it leaves the settlements and goes on its own journey. And so we do lose our Pokemon. We're not getting an Arboliva, but it was a lovely time while it was here. As revealed in the Terapagos I Don't Know, Nacli lived in Paldean land since ancient times, forming bonds with humans. In the same episode, it is also thought that Nacli used to help humans in warding off evil spirits for hundreds of years. That's because of the idea of pure salt being used to scare away ghosts or purify spirits. In the past, it was treasured by people who would use its salt. Even today, Nacli salt is still used in foods such as ice cream because it has a gentle flavor. Also, if you never understood why salt is so useful in certain foods, outside of like just your salty foods and why it can draw out sweetness, it's a matter of what sweetness does exist there. Can you use it to draw out the extra sweeter flavors, such as with watermelon, or can you help use it in something like sea salt caramel ice cream, which is a fantastic flavor in my opinion, although anything coffee flavored beats everything else. Probably gonna need a special space for Nacli, considering the fact that salt will emanate from it consistently as it moves, and it's probably going to be dragging salt everywhere, which means your carpet, your floors, everything's probably going to get worn down, which, not good. Give it a special room, call it a day. Charcadet does love to fight, so that kind of takes it out of the rotation, but it has at least made human bonds since ancient times and enjoys eating berries that are rich in fat. The reasoning for that is because fat burns really well, so that'll just help their flames grow hotter and higher. Tadbulb is just vibing until someone throws it into a ball, but at least with Bellibolt, it is said to be capable of moving very quickly, but usually chooses to move very sluggishly. In fact, it is very difficult to train a Bellibolt due to the fact that it just has a very easygoing temperament and does not notice its opponents until it is attacked. At night, its stomach emits a strange noise, which signals that it is hungry. So, get out the snacks at midnight and vibe on the couch with a squishy friend and some scary movies every night, and that's how you live your life with a Bellibolt. Despite being a dark-type Pokemon, it is actually not very underhanded, as the Mastiff line is actually supposed to be a great pet. Mastiff itself always tilts its head and makes a big scowl to appear threatening, but the display is highly ineffective even towards children. Meanwhile, Mastiff has a gentle temperament and loves playing with children. However, it will bare its teeth and take on an intimidating look when protecting its family. Nice and easy, another great dog for the books. Look, I can't resist the absolute war criminal that is the Tinkaton line. All it does is hyperfixate on making its hammer better, making it bigger, stronger, evolving it alongside itself as it is recreated and improved with every new iteration. Tinkatongue is intelligent and has a reckless personality. It swings its hammer at rocks to send them into the sky, aiming to hit flying Corviknight. This Pokemon will also steal anything that it wants and take it back to its dwelling. It has been observed using its hammer like a bed to sleep on. It doesn't say anything about striking planes, so I'm going to assume that it's fine, and if you really want to, you can have the chaotic little gremlin. Cyclizar would be dope. It wouldn't be a great house pet per se, but at the same time, it is a Pokemon that likes having humans ride on it to travel because you give it warmth, and then you benefit because you get to places faster while it can also carry your goods for you. Win-win. And finally, before I give you my 6th Pokemon that I would say I would want as house pets, we have Graveyard, which unfortunately will steal your life force the more time you spend with it by accident. It will also jump onto the ground and let out a spooky cry that may unintentionally startle people. It is friendly and affectionate, and it gets easily lonely. It's really easy to befriend, will forever follow anyone who gives it the slightest of attention, but once again, it will accidentally leave or steal your life force over time. It is rumored that it is the reincarnation of a dog Pokemon that had never interacted with a human and died in the wild. So we're in a bit of a sticky situation, considering the fact that you need to give this Pokemon love for it to evolve. Not actually how that works, but bear with me. You need to give attention to this Pokemon. That way it can develop and eventually evolve, so that way it can become Houndstone, which doesn't seem to have this issue, while also being considered one of the most loyal of all Pokemon. So somehow find a way to get a Pokemon that can restore your life energy, get a Graveyard, and then evolve it because it deserves the love it never got. Alright, so my 6 Pokemon that I would choose as house pets are not what I expected from the beginning of this when I started this research, but here they are. First up is the Happiny line. I am very big on the idea of raising animals from when they're younger unless they are a rescue. So I want to get that bad boy up to a Blissey. Make sure I can eat eggs. I love eggs. I can eat eggs for almost every meal. I love it. It's great for exercise. Also, it's a Pokemon that's going to help keep me healthy and happy. And if it wants to, it could even go out and help other people, which I think is a fantastic thing to be able to do, even as a Pokemon. So, Pokemon that helps keep me happy and keep me fed. Great. Second up is the Lillipup line. I will take any of them at any form. I have my German Shepherd already, and I have a decent backyard, luckily. Oh my goodness, luckily. So even if it does become its final form, I've got nothing to worry about. And in fact, I am kind of encouraged to do so if I'm going to have an actual team of 6 Pokemon, even though it's not an actual fighting team, whatever, we're just going to stick with 6. And it can help raise the other Pokemon that I would have on this or in my house. I almost did put Poochyena and Mightyena here, but at the same time, I know I spend a lot of time working on a lot of other stuff, and I probably can't give the most attention that I should to a Pokemon that is going to be incredibly difficult to properly train, and I should give proper attention. Third one is Sylveon. Its ability to calm emotions, sense my own emotions, and overall be a help is huge. I do have some level of anxiety and or depression that works within this brain of mine, and usually I have a pretty good hold on it, but for those days that I don't and I need some help falling asleep, Sylveon's going to be right there. Its ribbon's just going to grab my arm, and I'm just going to, and it's going to be fantastic. To follow that up, I did want one Pokemon that was going to be a grass type, a plant, something that, because I have plants in this office of mine and in the house, and overall, I enjoy taking care of plants, and how could I resist my sweet baby Chikorita, okay? It's going to take care of itself. It's going to have great soft scents that are going to go through the air, calming scents, revitalizing and energizing scents, and it's a plant dinosaur. What else do you want from me? I almost chose the Bulbasaur line, but I like the whole aromatherapy idea, and it doesn't release a bunch of spores that's going to be problematic at all. Fifth is Swablu. That and Altaria are fantastic. I love the idea of being able to walk around and have a fuzzy little hat on my head. It's also going to be a Pokemon that, once again, I miss birds. It is a bird, and it's going to be able to take care of its own messes if that ever became the case, and it did make a big mess, especially as it likes doing so. And finally, I would choose Mimikyu. I am a sucker for Mimikyu through and through. I don't know what else there is to say. Do I actually need to give reasoning as to why Mimikyu? I want to take care of the funny little Pokemon that is depressed and lonely and deserves more love and attention, okay? So with that then, tell me what your house pet Pokemon you would choose are. It doesn't have to be a full team of 6. Like I said, I read all the comments, even if I don't respond to them all. It's really nice and heartwarming to read a lot of these comments, I have to admit. And thank you to our members as we wrap up with this. All the members that you're seeing on screen in the credits here, they help ensure the channel stays happy and alive. It's a huge support as I am still a growing channel. So if you did enjoy this, please make sure that you subscribe, share this with others, and if you would like, become a member for as little as $3 a month. With that then, thank you so much for watching. Don't do anything I want to do. Don't do anything I want to do. Please be nice to each other. I love you, and I'll see you next time. Bye!